Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of all combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas, and today's special guest, Teddy Atlas Jr., to give us his perspective from the Sphere UFC, first Sphere show for the UFC. Love to hear a fan's experience, Teddy. How'd you like the show?
Hey, Ken. Thanks for having me. I had a great time having my father in town with my little guy, being able to enjoy the weekend, enjoy the fights was awesome. But the Sphere, I mean, what an experience. Obviously, I've never seen anything like that before. I don't think anybody has at a sporting event, not even the Super Bowl, which I've been lucky enough to attend. We had all types of entertainment. Obviously, they had the moving screens from the ceiling. It just didn't end. I mean, for me, the best way I could give an example, it's like going to Disney World and going into the Sphere at Epcot, and in between all the rides and entertainment, you get world championship fights. Just incredible. Unbelievable experience.
And for me, I was in a rocket ship. I've never caught a fight. I've caught a fight in a bull ring in Mexicali. I've actually had a fight in a bull ring. The great Tyrone Jackson, one of the best fighters I've ever. I'm as proud of Tyrone Jackson as any fighter that I had that won a world title. He got robbed for a world title against Miranda. He should have won it, but that's for another day. But he fought in a bull ring in Mexicali. And you talk about pressure, you talk about handling stuff. How about walking past the bull stalls and hearing the bulls, not to mention what you're smelling, right? The bull, you know what. But to hear the bulls snorting, some people might have thought it was me there, actually, because sometimes I do have this nasal problem because I didn't move my head enough. And now I have a deviated septum for years. But we had to walk past the bulls in the stalls to get to the ring. So I've seen a lot in boxing. Again, I've never watched and then later on analyzed fights from a spaceship. That's where I was. I was in a spaceship. They took me to Mars. And I was lucky enough to have, you're going to go to Mars, go with your son. Don't go to Mars alone. Go with your son. I was fortunate enough to go to Mars with my son, have him there with me, and then during the week, as Teddy said, have my grandson around. So it was a special night, a special couple of days for me, a special experience. And how lucky am I? Look at me. I'm back from Mars, right? Looking no worse for the wear, no better. I mean, some people say, Teddy, if you turn green, you might look better. But back from Mars, and look at me. Look at me. I got the number one marathoner who's 80 years old. 50 years old. I got Ken, because when you're 80, you'll probably still be doing this damn thing. I got Ken Rideout, the top marathoner, and I got the top scout in the NFL with me, and one of them who happens to have the same name as me. So how come on, life is good, right? That I hear my friends say that. I was never one of those guys, life is good. So yeah, it was quite a night. So I mean, you got to see the pageantry of it, just the spectacle of it. The Spear, what $20 million can bring you in a Spear, which is what Dana White and company paid. But you got to see the history of the great Mexican history, the warrior history. And after all, let's not forget, it was Mexican Heritage Week. So we got to see why these Mexican, the culture is so entrenched in just fighting and being tough and having a warrior spirit. The screen came alive, showing you that history.
That's what I wanted to ask you. How did it look in person? Because the Mexican movie, essentially, that they showed on television looked incredible. So I just couldn't imagine in person how awesome all the special effects and the cinematography looked. How'd you like the movie that they showed?
Teddy, you talk on it first. I mean, it was spectacular, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, from the sound system to the lighting, the movie pieces, to your question, Ken, I mean, these were reactive seats. The screens are moving from floor to ceiling. I mean, it was just unbelievable. They actually had objects looking like they were coming at you from the ceiling, falling down, and then dropping objects out of the screen into the crowd.
And I moved. I actually moved one time. If I moved my head that much, when I was boxing, my nose wouldn't be this freaking stuffed up right now. I thought the ceiling was coming down. I was like, whoa. Hey, look, there's nothing better. What's that commercial, Ken, where, it says you
Visa.
you go to a game to $50 for this, $100 for a hot dog, $150 for a soda, $200 for a beer, whatever. Nowadays it's absurd. But being at the game with your son, priceless. That's the best thing I can tell you. Priceless. To be able to see something that was never seen before, first sporting event ever in the Spear. I mean, no expense. The Jurassic Park. Remember Jurassic Park? The guy that ran it when the doctors came in to take a test run of it, didn't go too well. But this went better. The dinosaurs that were on the screen, they didn't come out and eat us. That was good. But in Jurassic Park, that movie, remember he kept saying to the guys that were taking a look at it before they opened it up officially, said, no expense, what's the word? No expense
Spared.
No expense spared. That's what this was. No expense spared. Everything was covered. Everything was magnificent. And like I said, priceless. You have your son with you, hitting you with his elbow every once in a while, going, whoa, Dad, look, you see this? Wow, look at this.
I like Dana's ever entertaining post-fight, post-event press conference. He said, I hope everyone who tuned in enjoyed it up until the co-main, and I think he expressing his disappointment in the main and the co-main for the lack of, let's say, traditional UFC excitement. But I also enjoyed his little comments on Oscar De La Hoya, because they included him in the Mexican heritage. You can't really talk about Mexican boxing without mentioning De La Hoya, but my God, Dana doesn't miss an opportunity to punch De La Hoya in the face from a verbal standpoint. But with that said, the main and the co-main a little bit lackluster relative to what we would expect from a UFC main. And you want to jump in and we'll cover the main event. Sean O'Malley losing to Merab Dvalishvili. They say styles make fights, and Merab's style was just too pressing for O'Malley. I know you had mentioned previously in the build-up that O'Malley could catch Merab reaching, but Merab kept him off balance seemingly all night and kept O'Malley in uncomfortable positions. And I don't know, not the most entertaining fight, but from a strategic standpoint, a perfect game plan for Merab, although he didn't win many fans and certainly not the approval of Dana White. How'd you like the fight? What'd you think of the matchup?
Merab didn't give a damn about winning fans that night,
That's for sure.
Like I say to fighters, and many people before me have said this, it ain't about right now winning fans in this particular fight sometimes. It's about just winning the fight. And that's all it was about with Merab. He's got plenty of time to win fans. Like, you had to get the belt when the belt was gettable. And he upset the apple cart in a way. It was a closely, it was a close fight as far as the gambling aspects, but he was the underdog. And all that mattered was winning. He had a buttoned-down fight plan, a tremendous disciplined fight plan, and he had to have one. You know what this fight was all about? I'll tell you both. And a couple people that are listening to us, hopefully a couple 100,000, that are listening to us right now because they're anxious because of what this weekend represented with the boxing and with the Spear, the UFC. There's been times where somebody will ask me before a fight, a difficult fight. This was a difficult fight. Either way you look at it. They would say, Teddy, what are you going to tell him to do? What should he do? And you know what I say? I don't know. But I know what not to do. That's what this fight came down to. What not to do. You didn't, if you're Merab, you didn't want to be the bull in the china shop with the matador. You didn't want to turn this tremendous striker into a matador. You wanted to make sure you didn't give him, you were not a co-conspirator to your own demise. That you did not give him rope to hang you. That you did not make mistakes. That you did not reach. You did not overshoot. You did not get over anxious. That's what Merab had. So this clap is for Merab. Congratulations. What a disciplined fight plan. You and your corner people, trainers, deserve. You deserve the accolades, the flowers, as my son says, the flowers that I'm sending you right now. You guys were prepared. You knew what not to do. The rest figured it out as the fight went on. It took care of itself. But what not to do, not to leave holes where you could get counted, not to walk into traps. You were controlled. You were concise with what you were doing. You were perfect for this type of fight. And there was one other thing, and I want my son's thoughts on this. He was with me in LA about a month ago when the great Terence Crawford fought against, who was it against, Bud?
Israel Madrimov.
Madrimov was a big dog and only had 10 fights, but he had 300 amateur fights. Solid guy. People didn't realize how solid. A lot of people thought Crawford didn't look great. It was a contested fight. They thought he was going to blow him out. No, it went the distance. Crawford, the great Crawford, he won. He had to fight a cautious fight. But there was something going on in that fight that drew Crawford off. I don't think anyone noticed it. Madrimov was bouncing like this. Watch me. He was doing this. Very unorthodox. Bobbing his hands and shoulders up and down, acting like a feint, keeping him. And it just was enough to make Crawford uneasy, to think too much, to not pull the trigger sometimes. A little bit offset, a little off balance, a little off rhythm, if you will. I'm telling you, they come from the same parts of the world. I don't know if they communicate. I don't know if that was what Merab was going to do anyway. It was brilliant. It was subtle. It was brilliant. And I don't think anyone else talked about. And talk about brilliant. All the commentators that UFC have, brilliant. All of them. But just doing this, when Merab was doing that, I thought it made O'Malley think too much. I think that it made O'Malley a little bit off, where he couldn't get his rhythm. O'Malley's a rhythm fighter. Counterpuncher, striker, jabber, fast hands, controls space, beautiful legs, keeps you off balance. His legs create defense and offense at the same time, simultaneously. But I thought that none of that got started. He does everything in a rhythm, like a symphony, like a great orchestra. Everything hitting on the right notes, everything, the string section, the drum section, the horn section, everything. Yeah, I'm glad I have this drop. Everything's so smooth. He never got a chance to do that, fellas, people, women, ladies, gentlemen. He never got a chance. And that little something like that kept him a little off stride. Also, control and range. That's what O'Malley does. Merab did it on him. He flipped the script. He did it on him. He controlled range. He stepped out. He didn't let O'Malley control range. He never gave O'Malley anything to counter. He's a great counterpuncher. He gave him nothing to counter. He kept him more back. He struck in a very conservative but very, very purposeful way, Merab. Just enough at the right, without leaving any openings, just to keep him honest. Again, he went out, he went in, he moved to the sides. He gave O'Malley a taste of his own medicine in some ways. He completely, I think, threw O'Malley off from what he expected, which was the bull in the china shop. The guy just coming to shoot in. He did everything but that. When he did shoot in, It was at the right distance. It was when O'Malley didn't have space to counter him. He did a magnificent buttoned-up job of fighting a very specific battle plan that had to be specific to fight this great striker. And now I picked O'Malley to win. I picked him all week. I did a fight plan with Anthony Smith, the great Lionheart. But it didn't turn out. But I don't go back on what I think O'Malley is. I don't go back. I don't care. Bring the slings and arrows, you haters. Bring it. I don't care. I was wrong. I didn't know that Merab was going to fight this kind of button fight. And look, I'll finish with this. Is there a chance that maybe when the NFL starts, buddy, what is one thing you could be sure of? That nobody in the NFL on any roster is 100% what?
Healthy, heading into the open.
Healthy. There it is. And we didn't script this, me and my buddy. We didn't rehearse this. Because that's what the NFL's about. Not for long being healthy. Because it's a pain game. It's a brutal game. It's a hitting game. And you're going to go through the season as soon as it starts, not healthy. As a matter of fact, as soon as training camp starts, not healthy. And I don't know, but the UFC, my business, boxing, quite often we go into fights not 100%. You wouldn't know it. We're not letting you know. We already know Merab had a cut. We know that he was using hedge clippers to take the stitches out. So we noticed that.
Hedge clippers or nail clippers? I hope he wasn't using hedge clippers.
No, hedge clippers. And he was using hedge. Ken, you really, this one time I didn't make a mistake. It wasn't a Freudian mistake. I know. This time I'm being accurate. Right, Bud? Didn't he use hedge clippers?
Yeah, we got to try to see if we could get a picture of that, but I've never seen anything like that.
Rob, I gave you a little bit of extra job there. Get a picture of that so Ken will see that I'm actually being serious and not facetious.
Well, the other thing we should say, Teddy, we would be remiss if we didn't give a lot of credit to the coaches Ray Longo and the great Matt Serra out on Long Island. I'm sure that they worked diligently to put this game plan together.
They were tremendous, Ken. The thing that I was making a point where I was asking Teddy, when the NFL season starts or even before, what is the one thing you can be sure of and you could depend on? Nobody's healthy. Well, a lot of times these UFC fighters, the boxers going in, they're not healthy, but you don't know it. Nobody's going to tell you. I have no information on this, but O'Malley looked like a guy I wouldn't be shocked. I'm taking nothing away from Merab. Merab did the job. He was prepared. He was brilliant. He was cerebral. He wasn't just a tough guy. How often do I talk about it's not enough just to be tough in this business? You got to be smart too. He was smart, and his corner was smart. Everything. But I would not be shocked if O'Malley was not 100% healthy. If he was impaired or compromised in some way. And maybe he wasn't. But I wouldn't be shocked if he was, because other than the way I explained it and broke it down, I don't know how you explain the lack of O'Malley showing you the things on any really consistent level. What round was it? The third or the fourth? I think it was the third or the fourth I gave to O'Malley, where he had a little bit more success. And look, he was in a desperate position. I think he was down 3-0 already, but or close to it if it wasn't 3-0. But other than that, what can reasonably explain where a guy who's been a great striker, used a great jab, didn't jab, uses great leg work, used it a little bit defensively, but didn't use it to set up offense, explodes in and out with combinations, didn't throw combinations, gets angles, throws guns, didn't get angles, didn't throw combinations. How do you explain that? I just explained it the best I can from my experience as a trainer in boxing, striking, if you will. But I also am experienced enough in 50 years in boxing to know there's a chance that he just was. Put it this way. A lot of people walked away saying, that didn't look like O'Malley. Maybe it wasn't O'Malley 100% from a physical standpoint, but take nothing away from Merab and the job that his people did and that he executed. You could draw up the best fight plan in the world, but you got to execute. Man, he executed. And we've seen films, right, Bud, of Merab jumping in, freezing lakes, and tell me about that one film. I mean, it's a little insane. It's a little insane. I mean, but it speaks to a guy who's disciplined. It speaks to, he's not disciplined when it comes to jumping in a lake that's got ice in it, but he's disciplined in his behavior and disciplined in his emotions.
Yeah, I mean, the video you alluded to is him dead middle of the winter, jumping into a frozen lake and splitting his head wide open. And then on the walk home, he says, it's still a great day, just a stupid decision by me. So, yeah, he's not fazed by anything. Nickname is perfect. He is the machine, and couldn't have been a better gentleman being able to meet him a few days before the fight over at the Apex, and how kind he was, not only to us, but to my son, little Teddy. So congratulations to Merab. I saw the fight very similar to you. I mean, I had texted you because we didn't get to watch the main event together. I said, this reminds me all about the Madrimov fight. Or you said that to me, and I said, hey, did you see my text? I said the same thing. The movement didn't allow him to trigger. He was thinking too much. But I also thought exactly what you said. He felt compromised. There was no twitch. There was no explosiveness. He was reaching. He was lunging. He was slow. It wasn't the O'Malley we were accustomed to seeing. And to your point, Dvalishvili didn't care and didn't stop coming. And he kept shooting and shooting and shooting until he got it. And it did take the air out of the ball there in the sphere, so to speak. It made for a boring fight. But congrats to Merab, and hell of a job done.
Hey, you know what, Ken? What he just showed me? He showed me the most important difference between me and him. Really, he's better than me. You know where? He can pronounce words. See, I'm using Merab. See, I'm taking the easy way out. You see? I'm using his first name. He goes right for Dvalishvili. Yeah, right there.
So
something
good. Yeah.
Right there. Really, so good.
Really
so
good.
good. Good job, bud.
Yep. Great. Well, if that fight got a little boring, the co-main did nothing to set it up. Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko in their trilogy. Grasso got the first one by decision. They fought to a majority draw last year. And in this fight, Shevchenko went grappling heavy, which doesn't, again, make for the most exciting fight. She gets the one-sided decision, 50-45 on all three scorecards. Like I said, did nothing to pump up the enthusiasm and excitement in the sphere, and to a certain extent let a little air out of the balloon. But a win's a win for Shevchenko. She gets the trilogy. They're now 1-1-1 between the two of them. How'd you like that one?
You know what? We had the pleasure and the privilege, me and my son sitting together in the spear, sitting next to great MMA fighters, UFC MMA fighters. Chael Sonnen, Gil Melendez, and
Dominic
Cruz. And I'm going to ask Teddy what he's called the row there later on, because it was quite a row of people we were sitting with. But Melendez, during the fight, said to me, I was the only one on the panel. I usually don't get it right. They get everything right. But when we had to do our picks, I was the only one who picked Shevchenko to win over Grasso. I just thought that there would be more urgency.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize. Yeah, that's a great pick, by the way. I wouldn't have picked her either. I would have said Grasso's got the momentum, the draw. I think Shevchenko was lucky to get the draw. And to see it this one-sided, you obviously saw something no one else saw, because I would have never, ever predicted a one-sided blowout the way that this fight went. So, well done.
Yeah, thank you. Listen, they're always better and smarter than I am. But on this one, I got the O'Malley one wrong. But then again, I had a lot of company. That's one thing. I had a lot of company. The only one that was really on the button that night was Vegas. the bookmakers in Vegas. They made a bundle because everybody and their mother, as as the phrase goes, had O'Malley. And I was one of them.
And not only that, the Mexican fighters went 2 for 6 on the entire card for the night. So I think Vegas cleaned up.
I didn't realize that, bud. And people were betting with their hearts, and their minds, but their hearts with the Mexican fighters. So that's a good point. Look, the thing that I felt, the reason why I took it's an old adage from my great mentor, Customato. He used to say, everyone thought Shevchenko might have been shot or on the way out, in the twilight, no doubt about it. The twilight, former great legendary champion, the whole works. But lost the first fight, had to draw the second one with Grasso, and she's just a little diminished. She's in the twilight. You got to go with Grasso. So most people will go with Grasso, and I remember D'Amato used to say, Daddy, when you get a former world champ who might be looking like their best days might have passed, and they look like they're the underdog in a particular fight, on one given night, they can pull it all together. They can reach up to the fighting gods, the boxing gods, the striking gods, and they can just summon up the spirit of before, the spirit of old. And for one night, they can put it together to fight a great fight and get the title back. I thought of that. And I said,
know who I think of when you say that? Every time you say that, I think of Nonito Donaire when he broke Inoue's jaw.
Yeah, I mean, he summoned it up for one night, but Inoue still won. That's why Inoue is so great. Yeah. I didn't know he had his jaw broke. I thought it was something else, but he...
Oh, was it his... It might have been his orbital.
I thought it was his orbital. Yeah.
Well, then you probably is. I don't remember. But still,
no
broke
problem,
his face.
Ken. What's
but
the
Nonito,
difference? It's a bone.
We would have thought Donaire... We would have thought Donaire gets blown out of the ring and knocked friggin' out of Japan in that fight. And to see him fight the way he did, because he got annihilated in the rematch. But for that one fight, man, he brought intensity and experience like we've never seen. I mean, it was unbelievable. His best fight probably ever.
Perfect example of what I'm talking about. And for that reason, I took Shevchenko. And I just thought there'd be, for the simpler word, I just thought there'd be more urgency. All night she fought with more urgency. That's one thing that I don't think you have to be Teddy Atlas or Gil Clancy or Eddie Fudge or DC or Joe Rogan, any of the great ones, to realize that. To see that she just fought with more urgency, more desperation, whatever you want to call it. Grasso's great, but she didn't quite fight with the fire. Again, the immediacy of the moment that Shevchenko fought with. And I started to say earlier, the great Gil Melendez was next to me, and he was joking with me that I was the only one who picked Shevchenko, and early on said it's over. She's winning the fight. Like, that's how smart these guys are. They can see, they can read the writing on the wall. It's over. And he said to me, who would have thought that Shevchenko the striker would tonight be Shevchenko the grappler? And that's what she was. She turned it into a grappling match. They're both tremendous on the mat. I thought that Shevchenko was better standing. I thought she would win it because of her advantage in striking, her length, being able to control, like O'Malley, being able to control the outside with a jab. Great form, great technique on the outside striking. I thought that was the way she would have the edge. I was wrong. I picked the right winner, but I was wrong in the way that it was going to be won. Because Shevchenko, as Gil Melendez said, she was not the striker, she was the grappler. She went to the floor, got the takedowns, and she dominated the floor for the most part. She dominated it. There was a couple spots there where she got herself into a little bit of a, hairy situation there for a minute where she went for a shoot and she walked into a guillotine, but she escaped it. Grasso almost had her. She escaped it. And then for the most part, she dominated on the floor. Not exciting, but very efficient, very effective. She just kept position all night long. So congratulations again. Never count out those former champs, Ken. Never count them out. Never count them out.
You were right. It was the orbital. It was the orbital of Inoue that Donaire broke. My apologies.
No, you don't have to apologize. It was a bone. It was a bone. You didn't say cartilage, did you? No.
No. Well, let's get into some of the other fights from the main card that did bring the heat and bring the energy. Starting with Ronaldo Lazy Boy Rodriguez. Unanimous decision over Ode Osbourne. I love this kid, Lazy Boy from Veracruz, Mexico. A self-described street kid from Mexico. Man, this kid has a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. He put it on Osbourne, throwing him all over the ring. Great fight. And I found it incredibly entertaining. How'd you like the styles?
Incredible fight. Just incredible. Osbourne's a southpaw. The most dangerous punch for me for a southpaw is the right hook because orthodox fighters aren't used to seeing that punch come from the peripheral. They're not used to it. And sure enough, Osbourne used that and dropped Rodriguez early on with the right hook and jumped on him, pounded ground, got him into a triangle angle with his legs. Incredible that Rodriguez survived that first round. Incredible. I had it 10-8 round. I don't know if the judges had it 10-8.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I think most of them did.
And then the second round.
Rodriguez was given a 10-8 round in the second by all three judges, but Osbourne was not. It was 10-9 in the first round by all three judges.
Oh, thanks for correcting that, bud. I didn't even remember. I felt like Osbourne won 10-8. I did. I felt like it was a 10-8 first round. To me, that is incredible. They don't give a 10-8 round in the first where Osbourne dominated, almost had him, and then Rodriguez comes back magnificently, incredibly, which these guys have the capacity to do. We've seen it time and time again. Just their intestinal fortitude, the whole thing. But for Rodriguez to get a 10-8 in the second and Osbourne not a 10-8 in the first, if there was the commission, I would sit down these judges, really. I would sit Mark Ratner, the former boxing commissioner in Nevada. He's the commissioner now for UFC, does a great job, been around 100 years. Great job. Dana White did a great job bringing him over for the credibility, for the, to have the right guy as a commissioner with his experience. But they should call these judges in and say, let me just ask you a question. You give Rodriguez 10-8 in the second. Okay, I'm not going to dispute it. How do you not give Osbourne, who dominated the round just as much in the first, how do you not give him a 10-8? So I just want to throw that out there since my buddy brought it up. Thank you for bringing it up. Look, second round, Osbourne. How did he get the 10-8 round? How did Rodriguez get it? Osbourne, he had him in a guillotine. Osbourne had Rodriguez in a guillotine, but he got out of it. And then he landed some some elbows. It was a great fight, back and forth. And then Rodriguez then dominated and took over on the map. And he looked like a boa constrictor. He really did. He made me think about the times that I take my grandkids to the zoo, to the reptile section, and they love the snakes. They love. I don't like them, but they love the snakes and the big boa constrictor. They love to see the size of that. That is what Rodriguez looked like, wrapping his legs around him. So Chael Sonnen, who was also sitting with us, said something really interesting, because I had asked Chael, do you think that was a 10-8 round, the first round for Osbourne? He said, yeah. And then, soon as the second round ended, you remember, buddy, he turned back to me and he said, Teddy, if the first round was 10-8 for Osbourne, this round was 10-8 too for Rodriguez. Well, Chael was right. It was 10-8. The only problem was the judges didn't give the 10-8 the first round the way they should have to Rodriguez. Third round, Rodriguez switched to southpaw at the beginning. Then he went back to orthodox. Osbourne did a good job striking, using the jab, catching him coming. But Rodriguez caught him going out. And Osbourne got a leg takedown, which was big. Then the last 30 seconds, Rodriguez finished big on top. I thought he stole the round. I thought Rodriguez, really close, great fight. I thought Rodriguez probably stole the round at the end. Matter of fact, again, Chael made a great point. I said, who do you think is going to get it? He said, hey, look, it was close. I think you're right, Teddy. I think Rodriguez might have stolen the round, and it is Nocha UFC, right? Judges are human. Maybe they're going to lean a little bit towards Rodriguez. For me, I believe, who else but in our row thought it was a Gil? Thought it should be a draw?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what Gil thought of the outcome. We all thought it was that close that it could have been a draw. I could see what you're saying with Rodriguez pulling it out with the crowd support and the judges maybe being influenced. Again, if you're going to rule 10-8 in the second, you have to rule 10-8 in the first. The guy was starched right off the bat. He was in a deep, deep choke for almost the entirety of the round. So it didn't make sense to me until I looked at the scorecards after the fight. And then it made perfect sense. Who was one of the judges? Adelaide Bird. There you have it. There it is. So UFC, unfortunately, they have the same problems as boxing with these judges.
Lock your doors. Put everything away safely. I mean, give us a little background on Adelaide Bird for those that aren't quite familiar with the famous, infamous Adelaide Bird, and why we are dubious when she is a judge.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a richer history of Adelaide Bird being involved in controversial decisions, to say the least. I can't recall off the top of my head right now the exact ones, but there's been many, and maybe even involved in some of the Canelo fights, maybe of the past, maybe the Triple G fight, I'm not sure. But we could pull that up and look that up in a second. I mean, there's been plenty. I don't know if Ken has that and could pull it up.
Well, she was involved in the Canelo and Gennady Golovkin fight. She had, after scoring it, 118, 110 for Alvarez.
Listen, I'm not a Canelo hater. I love Canelo. By the way, we'll get to him. He was great. He was great tonight. But on that night, he lost. He lost in the first fight. You want to give him the second one? Fine. But he lost. It was a close fight. They made it a draw. But it wasn't. That was Triple G's fight. But to give it, I don't care either way. But you want to give it to him by You want to make it a draw, which is what they wound up doing. It wasn't a draw. Triple G won that fight. But you want to make but to give it to him in a decisive one-way street way in an avalanche, you can't do that. You can't do that without having numbers underneath your chin. You got to have numbers underneath your chin if you do that. Here, look. Like this. You ever seen this before? Ken, buddy, you ever... thank God you were young. You were very young when your dad posed like this once. Thank God we got to a better place. We all make mistakes when we're like 17 years old. But this is the picture that you have to take if you are a judge giving it. What was that score? 118 what?
118, 110. And that was my stepfather, not my father in jail.
No, I'm talking about myself. I wasn't talking about
my
you.
stepfather, too.
All right, so we have something in common. Well, he has. But you got something in common with Ken. Besides, you both have great legs. So, I mean, this is what you have to look like if you give that kind of score in that fight. And again, the people out there, some of you appreciate that I say what I believe. Some of you don't. But the truth is the truth. I mean, there's opinion in this, and obviously in a subjective sport with judging. I get it. There's a subjectiveness in it. I understand. But there's certain things that are just black and white. There's certain things that are just, you can't, in that case, give a 118, 110 score to Canelo. You can't without really indicting yourself that you're not honest. You're just not honest. So
the fight I was thinking of was C.J. Ross scored the Mayweather-Alvarez fight a draw. C.J. Ross scored it a draw, 14-14. That's what I was thinking of. It wasn't Adelaide Bird. Apologies.
No apologies, because I'm glad that you went and found it, Ken. No apologies necessary. Matter of fact, Teddy had mentioned the same thing. He was wondering too. He said it was either Bird or Ross. Because
she's been involved in a lot of bad ones, though. I can tell you that.
No question.
Do they live next door to each other? I mean, do they? I mean,
they have the same wiring instructions for their bank account.
Oh, all right. Let's move on. Let's move on from Brink's.
Let's get into. Okay, so we go from a bunch of decisions to another decision, but one that turned out to be fight of the night and potential fight of the year. Certainly one of the best rounds in history. Joe Rogan called it one of the best fights he's ever seen. We had Mexico against Argentina. This fight was unbelievable. We had Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Ribovics from Argentina. Razor-thin decision. Pretty even through the first two rounds, and they came out headhunting in the third. I mean, both guys were hurt in the round. Ribovics does enough in the end to get the decision, and I mean, I could use adjectives to describe it all night, but tell me what you thought. It was incredible. Incredible action.
I second what Rogan said. One of the greatest fights I've ever seen. And all-in-one. Not only one of the greatest fights that I've ever seen, but one of the greatest rounds. And I've seen a lot of great rounds. A lot. One of the greatest rounds I've ever seen. It was just incredible. Incredible on both fighters' sides. I mean, Zellhuber.
I'm just saying that, just you saying that alone. I mean, you think about Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti, round 9. You think of all the great rounds that we've talked about on this show, Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo. To put this round in that context, and we don't do that lightly, or you don't do that lightly. So that hopefully, if people haven't seen that fight in that round, will go back and watch it, because I couldn't imagine two tougher guys fighting in the middle of a cage. It was incredible.
No, include in that, go back to the the 70s, the 80s. Go back to the Bobby Chacones, the Bazooka Lamones, the Boza Edwards, those fights. I mean, it was just that good. Talk about greatest round. One of the greatest rounds besides the ones you just mentioned, and they are the greatest. Heavyweights, Larry Holmes and Ken Norton. A lot of people forget about it. That was when it was still 15 rounds to win the title.
Yep.
That 15th round changed the direction of two lives. Two lives. Where Holmes went on to be champ and make millions of dollars and one of the greatest heavyweight champs of all time. And Norton, really, he, as great as he was, fought Ali 3 times, broke his jaw in the first one, beat Ali, and then a lot of people thought he won the other one, at least 2 of the 3. But Ken Norton, for the most part, went on not to really be known or really, relevant to the point that Holmes was and to have the career Holmes had. So when I say
that one round a lot of times can change a trajectory of a career, to your point. Think about Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. That 9th round got Mickey Ward a rematch and then a rubber match and millions of dollars when Mickey, all due respect, was a club fighter. He wasn't getting main event pay-per-view money. That one round changed the trajectory of his entire life. And hopefully for these guys, it has the same effect, that people are now aware of how incredibly good and exciting these guys are.
Yeah, like you said about Mickey and Arturo, couldn't believe how Arturo got up from that body shot. I couldn't believe Zellhuber didn't go down. What the heck was keeping him up? And I just want to give my buddy a little credit on this one. We keep talking about the guys we were watching the fight with, and we were sitting in Murderer's Row there with all the greats we listed. But the guys were asking my father early on, they said, what do you think of Zellhuber's boxing? He's got the length. He has the reach. He puts nice punches together. He also had some beautiful long knees. So while giving credit to that, my father made a very good point, and it came true. The mistake that Zellhuber made. He said the tall guy, the one thing he has to be careful about is pulling straight out. If he steps with him, he could get caught, and boom, that's what started this all. But unbelievable. One of the best fights I saw. It reminded me of Poirier and Hooker. Just incredible.
Yeah, thank you, bud. So Zellhuber, he's got that classic look of the old British boxers. Let's face it, boxing kind of started with the British, with the Marquess of Queensberry rules and going way back. And the Brits deserve a lot of credit with the history of boxing. And it's a steep history there. And that's what Zellhuber looked like to me. That classic straight-up boxer, beautiful straight punches, jabs, straight punches, good technique, straight up, really pretty, if you will. It's funny to use the word pretty for a fighter, but really, really classical look. The only problem, what you just touched on, the punches come out straight. He controls range, nice, really nice boxer, striker, but he does stand straight up, where you can catch him straight up or going straight back. And in the end, that was his Achilles heel, where he did get caught. And credit who, I thought he lost the first 2 rounds, Ribovics. I thought he lost the first 2 rounds, but obviously the second was close. First round, so Zellhuber won. Second one was close. Obviously the judges, some of them gave it to him. But that third round, oh my goodness. Zellhuber's doing well. He actually caught Ribovics with an elbow early on, and Ribovics had to overcome an eye poke too. So you got to give Ribovics, both of them, tremendous credit. What took place after that, after the elbow, where Zellhuber caught Ribovics, after the eye poke, which Ribovics didn't even take time to clear or to get over, all of a sudden Ribovics catches him stepping back, actually standing straight up. As he threw a jab, he timed him beautifully. I always talk about a jab is a great weapon, but it's kind of like, if it's in the use, it's like the old saying, You might have something that's a great weapon, but it's got to be in the hands of the right person. They got to know how to use it. Otherwise, it could be dangerous. A jab could be dangerous. As great as it is, it sets up defense, sets offense up. It helps create defense, controls range. It does so many things. It's the most important punch in boxing and in striking. But if you use it at the wrong distance and you're standing there straight, it's dangerous because you're in range of the right hand counter over it and you might not see it. And that's exactly what Ribovics did. And it's incredible he did it after getting hit an elbow and an eye poke. And he needed that round. The last round was the round that was going to win the fight for either guy. And he throws a right hand and puts a left hook behind it. Oh, my goodness. It was unbelievable. Right on the chin. Right on the chin. And it hurt Zellhuber bad. And he starts flailing. His legs start giving out on him. He starts just like watching a wrapper in the wind. Like if you let a piece of wrapper go out in the wind and you're just watching it, the wind blow it this way, blow it that way, blow it back this way. That's what he looked like. He looked like a piece of paper caught in the wind, being blown left and right. And he's going on. He was doing the drunken dance. He was doing. I'm sure there was a few people out there watching in your early days. You might have looked similar without getting hit, where you think you're walking straight, but you ain't walking so straight. You're going sideways a little bit. I'm sure we've all been there at some point in our lives, or a lot of people have. Well, that's what Ribovics did to Zellhuber without giving him a drink, without giving him a shot of whiskey. Nothing. Just right hand over the jab. He never saw it. Left hook. What a chin. What a heart. Zellhuber starts just going all over the ring. But he went everywhere except for one place that my buddy touched on. He didn't go down. They should use him in that movie with Jake LaMotta where he fights Sugar Ray. Never got me down, Ray. Never got me down, Ray. Never got me down. This was the real movie, real life. He would not go down. He refused. His will was greater than the pain and damage of the right hand left hook. His will was greater than that. His will spoke louder than the nerves that were sparking in and out, disconnecting with the legs, with the brain and the legs. The nerve endings were being short-circuited. The will was stronger than that. It would not allow him. He would not allow himself to go down. I don't know how he did it. He went all over the damn ring. He was like a ring inspector. Go check that side. Go check that side. Are the ropes tight over there? Good. They're tight here. How about over here? Let me check them. Hold on. Yeah. Good over here. How about over there? Incredible. I can't say it loud enough or enough. Zellhuber was incredible. That he stayed up. He did not go down. He survived the round. And he was getting hit shots in between. Ribovics stayed on him, kept throwing, tried to get rid of him, couldn't get rid of him. And by the end, am I imagining this? Was I in a dream, Bud? Verify this for me. Because it was so unreal that I want to know if it was real. At the end, do I remember correctly? Did Zellhuber actually come back and start landing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He had his moment, and he turned the tide. Ribovics got the best of it, obviously. But, yeah, he had his moments, too.
It was, and I'll leave it with this and give it back to Ken. Ken, they were placed at the right time, those fights. And I'll tell you why. Because, yeah, we didn't know that the main and the co-main was going to be disappointing in action. But The spear was at the center of attention. Yeah, O'Malley Marab, but the spear was at the center of attention for that show. And there was no better way to debut it, to open it up, to bring the curtain down, if you will, before the night was over, but to start it off with a bang. You talk about starting off with a bang. There was no better way to start off a special historic night than to start off with those two fights. What a job by the matchmakers. The main events turned out to be what they did. That happens. But what a night. What a job by the matchmaker. What a start. You want to start with lightning, with thunder? Well, I'm telling you, you started with that.
Well, we also had the star Diego Lopes in action. He beat Brian Ortega all over the ring in all facets of the fight. Complete one-sided victory there. 30-27 on all scorecards for Ortega. I love Brian Ortega. He's very tough. He's got a great style. I like watching him fight, but drops his third fight in the last 4 fights. He's got 1 win in his last 4 outings. Tough look for him, but Diego Lopes, I feel like a star is born. And for Ortega to go from like being milliseconds away from choking out Alex Volkanovski to now suffering his 3rd loss in 4 outings, tough spot for Brian Ortega, but he's a tough guy. I assume he'll be back. How'd you like the performance from Diego Lopes?
I think you phrased it correctly. Maybe I'd take it 1 notch further. Not a star is born, a star is here. I think fair. That, no, you did it great. But Lopes, I think, could be the next. O'Malley was being positioned as that guy. He still can be. But it took a little hit. But the great ones take hits and they come back and they become greater. That's what they do.
That's true.
So O'Malley's going to get that chance to do that and show his greatness. But this is a business. This is an entertainment business. They're always looking for their next star. Conor McGregor is the pioneer of it. He's the Muhammad Ali of it. He's the greatest promoter of all time, maybe. Him and Ali and a couple other guys. But he's he's still the name. And even though he's at the latest stages of his career, all of that, he's still the guy. He's the pioneer. He's the GOAT when it comes to stardom, to getting the attention. And look, there's great ones. You go back to Shamrock, you go back to Liddell. I mean, it's the pioneers of those generation, no doubt about it. But for the modern day superstar of the UFC, when I say pioneer, of bringing the purses to another level, of bringing the sport to another level, that was Conor McGregor. Lopes 100%. Has a chance to be that guy. He's got it all. He's got the it factor. He's got the talent. I mean, never forget how good McGregor was. Yeah, he could talk. Yeah, he could promote. Yeah, he was sensational. He was crazy. He was edgy. He was incredible the way he could sell a fight. Unbelievable. Really nuts. But he could fight. He could counterpunch. He could strike. He could fight. And when the moment was there, he was there. And Lopes came this close to giving me, I think you mentioned it too, Bud. I'm not sure. But he came this close to giving me a Conor McGregor moment. And right? You remind me of what you had said.
Well, he almost starched him, obviously, right off the bat. I mean, first of all, he doesn't have the mouthpiece of Conor McGregor, but he's got the best haircut in the UFC, Diego Lopes. I love this guy. First of all, for me, I don't know if Ortega struggled to make weight again. Obviously, this fight was supposed to happen a few months ago. It didn't. It's been well documented why. But with the hard weight cut, maybe, he looks sluggish to me, Ortega. And unfortunately for Ortega, the best thing he did this night is he made the decision to not jump in the air during the ring introduction and sprain his ankle again. Because otherwise, he didn't do anything. Diego was able to starch him early, land a big shot, and then he was able to pick his spots, reserve his energy, and coast to a decision where he was never tested in this one. And to be honest, I wanted a little more action, but excited to see what's next for Diego. I'd like to see him avenged maybe against the guy who beat him in his UFC debut, Evelev or maybe Volkanovski. But I'm ready to see him in there with the best of the best.
Yeah, Lopes, to your point, and a point that I was initially touching on and trying to make was he came this close. For those that are only on audio, my fingers like a half-inch apart. He came this close to getting Ortega, the great Ortega. He's later in his career now, but the great Ortega, this close to getting him out in the way that McGregor kind of announced himself as the new star, the new superstar in the UFC when he got Aldo out, right? Am I remembering?
When he landed the big right hand at the very beginning of the fight. Absolutely.
Yeah, the counter punch that he landed on.
The difference here was when he landed the right hand, Lopes, I thought Ortega was going down. He put the left hook behind it, and it almost raised him back up. It's like it woke him up, the left hook.
You know what? It might have woke him up. And you see that phenomena in boxing, in striking, sometimes, where a guy looks like he's out and he gets woken up with the next shot. It's a phenomena. But it's, to your point, Lopes started fast. He dropped Ortega coming in with the right hand and the left hook, as you said. Almost finished him. Ortega did a great job, to survive. I thought that Lopes spent used a lot of gas. I felt like it was a 10-8 first round, or it could have been. But Lopes, he used a lot of fuel. To your point, he conserved himself a little bit in the second round. He was a little more conservative. He still won the round, but a lot of petrol was used in that first round. I thought Lopes in the second round, coasted a little bit, as I just said, used a lot of fuel. He won the round. It was 2-0 Lopes. Third round, the left leg of Ortega, we have to touch on this, was compromised. Great leg kicks by Lopes. Great strike. One thing about Lopes, he don't use the jab a lot. He throws combinations, and he's very explosive. And he's like a rainstorm in the middle of the summer. It's sunny 1 minute, and the next minute, bop, 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 it's raining, thunder, lightning, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and it's clear skies. He is explosive in spurts, Lopes, where all of a sudden, bang, 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 and then he's gone, and you got to be on the alert with Lopes at all times. But the funny thing is, he doesn't use the jab much. He throws combinations, he counters, he's beautiful with striking. In and out, like I said, moments where suddenly he'll just explode a combo on you, but it's always power shots. It's not accompanied by a jab much. And I find that interesting. And it's not like he misses a beat. It's not like when he's not jabbing. A lot of times guys need to jab to get close enough to set up the power shots or to get in position for the power shots. Lopes has the ability to judge range with his feet so well that he don't need to jab. He'll lead with the left hook, right hand, left hook, whatever, without setting it up with the benefit of a jab, and not leave himself compromised, not leave himself exposed. So I'm very impressed with his instinct, his awareness of his range, that he can throw those punches and know that he's not leaving himself exposed in any way. But he did a great job with his legs. He's very athletic. He's very explosive in every domain. And he really banged the crap out of the legs of Ortega. Ortega's left leg by the third round was given out. I mean, you could actually see it start to collapse. And Ortega showed great heart, really great heart to survive Lopes. Lopes almost got the finish at the end, came very close to it again, but Ortega's experience and heart, kept him from getting the finish. Tremendous fight, terrific fight, and again, Lopes just put another flag in the ground for me of, saying, hey, I want to be the next superstar in the UFC. If you guys are going to back down a little bit on O'Malley or whatever, mark me. Of course, there is a guy who's maybe the biggest star, Pereira. I have to finish with that. But the difference with Pereira is what my son touched on earlier about Lopes is not with the mouth the way, obviously, Conor had the gift of, that gift of being able to say certain things besides fighting a certain way. But that is Pereira too. He's unbelievable. He might be the face of UFC right now if you ask me, but he's unbelievable. But he does all his talking with the left hook, and he doesn't have to give the gap. He still has that it factor. Most of the great guys that become stars have to be able to talk, have to be able to promote himself. But for me, Pereira does it in a different way. He does it with his aura. He just does it with his aura, his stare, his look, that tribal stare, and the chilling feeling. I mean, he scares people. When he stares at somebody before a fight, I mean, you feel like you're looking into the eyes of the devil. I mean, this guy's like looking right through your eyes into your soul. And I think that where he comes in different besides his talent, he might be able to be that superstar just with his aura and his talent without having to put the audio with it, without having to put, all of that, the talking part to it. I just get that feeling. You had a fight with me, bud, a couple months ago when Pereira scored another quick knockout. I think it was against Hill. And
we were at that one. We were at the Yuri one.
Yeah, we were at the Yuri one too. I mean,
the Pereira is a perfect example. Besides being obviously his fellow countrymate, the thing for me and what you're saying is they just both want to fight. It's not about talking; it's about fighting, and they show it. Whether short notice, whether guys don't make weight cuts, whether 4 hours notice, they say yes, I want to fight, and they both have that in common.
Well, before we jump into the boxing, Teddy, let me just give a quick shout out to our friends over at Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is the all-in-one green drink. A scoop in the morning is all you need to make sure you're on top of all your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, probiotics, prebiotics. And I know coming back from Vegas, you were taking the travel packs with you every day. Critically important to make sure your diet's on point when you're traveling. Your immune system gets run down. Athletic Greens is the great insurance policy to make sure you're getting all the vitamins and minerals that you need, made from whole food sourced ingredients. athleticgreens.com/atlas for our listeners. 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. athleticgreens.com/atlas. Teddy, let's jump over to the boxing arena and get right into the Canelo card. We'll start on the undercard. Nobody's favorite fighter, Rolly Romero, gets a unanimous decision over Manuel Jaimes. Romero did what he had to do, got the unanimous decision. I think it was 99-91. How'd you like it?
First, full disclosure, as always, we're going to cover 4 of the fights. The one we're not going to cover is the Fulton fight. It was a good fight. It could have been controversial, from what I understand. The reason we're not going to cover it is, again, full disclosure, where I had to fly home from Las Vegas yesterday. I got home late. I stayed up to 1:30 in the morning. I watched the whole card. Though my wife ordered the pay-per-view for me, had it ready for me, watched it from the beginning to the end, and guess what was not on it? The Fulton fight. I don't know why.
Miss for the promoters to not include it in the replay.
I don't know why, Ken. Ken, I really don't, because
it wasn't on mine either. I saw it live, but the replay wasn't on mine either because I went to watch it back on Sunday morning. But hey, that's a big miss for the promoter, like I say. But we can jump in with the Romero Jaimes fight and give them the fights that they did show.
First thing I noticed about Romero, besides what I always notice, that Al Heyman has favorites. Al Heyman's good to his fighters. He is. He's made a lot of fighters millionaires.
No one would dispute that. That's definitely for sure.
And he's got some guys he just more endearing to him, I guess. But he really loves this kid Romero, I guess, because he keeps giving him chance after chance.
I was thinking the same thing.
A little bit like, and Romero's not in the same class. I mean, the guy I'm about to mention, his behavior is terrible. Has been terrible sometimes, but he had
Adrian Broner.
Yeah, you got it.
They remind me of each other. That's why I describe him as nobody's favorite fighter. Do you know a single person who says to you, "I can't wait to see Rolly Romero fight. I love that guy."
Well,
it's like you're just waiting to see what weird things he's going to do and say. It's a shame.
In fairness, I'm with you. In fairness, I want to put this there. I noticed that Romero now, coming off the Cruz loss, he got stopped. His second loss, both by stoppage. I noticed he's much more humble. I don't know if it's going to stay that way, but he's much more likable. He's much more humble.
Exactly.
He's not saying those things anymore,
100%.
Ken.
From a manager's perspective, you hope he stays like that.
So I give him credit for that. He deserves it. And I don't want to mix up with anyone out there saying he's like Broner with his full behavior, because Broner took it to another level. Sure. I think. I don't think Romero took it to that level.
Fair.
But Broner, as talented as he was, he kept, whenever he would come up short in top fights, Heyman would just put him right back in the top fight.
Yep.
Right back.
He must have sold tickets.
Like he was, like he was his favorite or one of his favorite children. So at the end of the day, for this fight, Romero, it was a comeback fight, coming off a knockout loss. He fought Jaimes. That's how you pronounce it, I believe, even though it's spelled J-A-I.
Yeah, you're right.
Jaimes,
I gave you the English pronunciation as opposed to the Spanish, but you're right. Jaimes is his name.
Yeah, and I finally got one right. Thank goodness. And Romero, like the
My
great
apologies
Mickey Duff,
to the Spanish crowd.
The great Mickey Duff used to say, even a blind squirrel's gonna find a chestnut once in a while, or an acorn. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We'll find an acorn every once in a while. But Jaimes, no power. That was the key. Not a puncher, but a lot of heart. Very game, but just a perfect comeback fight for Romero, because he's in front of him, applying pressure, but controlled pressure. Not so much where it didn't allow Romero to get himself together, to get his feet under him, to get his confidence, to feel comfortable, to get back after a knockout loss. And it's hard to come back after a knockout loss. So credit to him. He got tested just enough, but not too much. Not too much. The style of Jaimes was perfect. Not power, right in front of you, aggressive, but only gradually, controlled, not on you like a blanket, like Cruz. Gives you a chance to take a breath, smell the roses, get a little fresh air. If you're having those ghosts visit you in your attic during a fight from the Cruz fight, it gives you a chance to get rid of those ghosts.
That's a good point.
It gives you a chance to let those go out the ears, not the windows, but out the ears. And so it was the perfect opponent, and he tested him just enough because he's a game guy, Jaimes. For me, Romero was the bigger, physically stronger, and that was obvious. He was the physically stronger guy. He loads up on all shots. Romero, he throws everything with power. It got sloppy in spots. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that in an accurate way. It got where Romero will load up on shots, looking for everything, looking for the home run, and fall in sometimes, smother himself, grab. Both of them. There was a lot of clinching on the inside. There was some rounds that started really getting sloppy. There was some good rounds. It wasn't bad, but it was also what I just said. And it wasn't the cleanest fight as far as, aesthetics. Like I said, there was a lot of mauling on the inside, grabbing on the inside in spots. But for the night, Romero was the stronger guy, threw punches with bad intentions, landed some good uppercuts, some good counter shots, as Jaimes, who had a good chin, a stout heart, was coming forward. Romero was just a little busier. Again, physically better, stronger. As much as Jaimes did everything he could, but Romero was just a little better. Got off a little more punches, got off at the right distance, landed some counters when he had to, especially later on with the uppercut. One of the vulnerabilities of Romero, besides he loads up on all shots, he's got a good jab. He should use it more. But for me, he's got the vulnerability, I've talked about it before, where he'll go straight out, but not one step, 2 or 3. And if you follow him, like Cruz did, quite frankly, if you fall, you can catch him going straight out, where he's defensive, where he's not set to defend or to punch. So he's got to correct that, where he doesn't go straight out. Also, sometimes there's a little space in between his punches. There is with everyone, but there's a little bit in a predictable manner with Romero because he's always throwing big shots. Big shots. So at the end of the day, mission accomplished. He came back off the Cruz loss. He got a win. He got tested just enough. Not too much. Sometimes when you're trying to bring those flowers back that started to wilt a little bit in a garden. I'm a gardener too. Yeah, I got a green thumb. And you're starting to bring those flowers back a little bit, Ken. You gotta be just enough. You give them water, but not too much. Not too much. Too much, it'll sog them down. It'll drown them. You won't let them come back. Just enough sunlight, enough water. Let them revive. Let them blossom again. Romero was allowed to blossom again a little bit. And now we'll see what comes next for him. We'll see. He's going to fit right in again. He gets a win. I mean, you talk about a guy that sits in a catbird seat more often than not. I mean, you talk about a guy that seems to, I'm not saying he was born with a silver spoon because I'm not saying any of these fighters were. But you talk about the guy that gets the pampered treatment sometimes, if you will. This guy, I'd like to have his agent. I'd like to have his agent because he must have a good agent or something. Am I right about that, bud?
Yeah, I mean, he got a gift decision against Jackson Marinos years ago. He parlays that in a payday versus Tank. He then, after the loss to Tank, gets gifted a belt opportunity in the next fight versus Barroso. He lands a shot on his shoulder. Tony Weeks steps in prematurely. And then he gets the payday against Pitbull Cruz, and here he is again. about to, like you said, be back in contention. I could see a Ryan Garcia next in his return fight. I could see a big money fight. But for me, this fight was very clear. When he's on the outside and there's space, like you said, the shots are too wide. They're too fat. I don't see refinement. It's not natural to him. But when he was inside and he's forced to shorten up the punches, that's when he did his best work. And he was just stronger and more physical than the other guy. And he knew that. And that's why he was more comfortable inside. But yeah, I see him back in the mix now.
All right, let's get to the next fight on the card. Was one of my favorite fighters and hometown guy here in Nashville. Caleb Plant gets the win over Trevor McCumby. This fight was super entertaining. McCumby had moments early. I think he dropped Caleb in, I think, the third round with a great shot. I was so surprised early on. I was thinking I would have bet my life that Caleb Plant wins this fight. And in those first few rounds, Caleb was hurt a few times badly on wobbly legs. They were taunting each other throughout the fight. And then finally, I believe in the ninth round, Caleb Plant gets him out of there with the TKO. Like I said, I found it incredibly entertaining. TKO in the ninth is what he did. Another win for Caleb Plant, which means another payday for Caleb Plant. I'm happy for him. He's like I said, I think he's a very nice guy. How'd you like that one?
No, it was a good fight. It was really a good fight.
A lot of back and forth.
Yeah, what you alluded to, let me just put a little bit of closure on it. Yeah, he scored a knockdown in the third round. One problem. McCumby, the underdog, big underdog, undefeated, but untested in these waters, scored a knockdown in the third round. You're right, Ken. One problem. The referee, as good a night as the fighters had, and McCumby had as an underdog, surprising people, the ref had a pretty bad night. Pretty bad night.
I would agree with that.
Because he didn't score at a knockdown. He got, McCumby needs room to punch. He comes in with big punches. He backed Plant up. He did what he had to do. His only chance was to win on the inside. He wasn't going to win on the outside. With the more experienced Plant, with a good jab, Plant who boxes well, he had to get inside. That's McCumby's thing. That's his bag, if you will. And to his credit, him and his trainers knew that. They went to get inside. The first 5 rounds, it worked pretty well for him. He got a lead in the fight. In the third round, he forced with his pressure. He imposed his pressure, his physicality. He's a big guy, McCumby. He imposed his pressure and his body, if you will, onto Plant, forced him to go straight back and straighten up a little bit. And he caught him a left hook in a corner at the end of the round, and he dropped him. And the referee did not count it. Here's the thing where boxing gave itself another black eye. They had instant replay. They looked at it. It was clear as day that it was a knockdown. Hit him a big left hook. Matter of fact, Plant, game guy, he was hurt. It's a good thing it happened at the end of the round. He was hurt.
Definitely.
He goes down. He's hurt. They got tangled up, but he goes down from the punch. He gets up. The bell saves him. So who knows what he would have done? I mean, he's a game guy. Let's say he would have survived. But it would have been something to overcome. It would have been interesting if it happened a little earlier. But it happened when it happened. But it should have been a 10-8 round. It was a knockdown. And psychologically, it made a difference because the big underdog would have felt a little bit better that I got the knockdown. You know, he knows he landed, but he didn't get the credit for the knockdown. So psychologically, you're going into a fight as an underdog. You haven't been in those waters. The most important thing is the mental aspect, that you have to believe that you belong in those waters. Getting credit for the knockdown would have helped them believe and feel secure in those areas. It would have helped him a little bit. The Plant did a good job. Take nothing away from him. He showed his experience. He showed his mettle. He showed his championship character. But McCumby did not get a fair deal in that third round. In the way I just said, not only
just the third round. The second round is the hook. The third round, there was another questionable one.
No. What was the knockdown? The second round, right?
Second round was the hook that you're talking about.
Yeah, second round. I'm sorry.
Was another one with a right hand. And then he gets credit for the one, to me, that shouldn't have been ruled in the fourth round when he lands on the shoulder.
Wasn't a right hand later in the fight?
Third round.
Oh, all right. So second round left hook. He forces him back. I had that part right. I had the round wrong. He forces him back, gets him straight up, catches him the left hook at the bell. He goes down, tangled up a little. Referee misses it. They ask the replay. The referee says, I stand by my decision of not reversing it. Why do you have replay? So you can reverse a mistake, correct a mistake. He didn't use it. I got a question here. I got a question to both of you. I'll start with my buddy first. You get privilege. You have a name.
I already know where you're going with this because I wanted to ask you that.
You have a name that I kind of like a little bit. So there's a knockdown. We see it clear as day that Plant got knocked down. Plant's the house fighter. He's the favorite. He's the former champion. He's the A side. Let me ask you a question, but then I'm going to send it to Ken for the same question. If that happens the reverse way, and the underdog, not the house fighter, the B-side fighter, McCumby, gets hit with that left hook, and it's missed by the referee again. They go and look at the replay. Does the referee make the same call, the same decision to say, no, I stand by my first decision, I'm not reversing it, it's not a knockdown? Or, because it's the B-side fighter, does he say, yeah, change that to a 10-8 round?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. I do think they would have reversed. I do think the commission probably would have said, hey, we're going to reverse the call instead of standing by the referee. But not a surprise. I didn't expect it to get overturned, and I didn't expect McCumby, the B-side fighter, at 16-1 underdog coming in to get that kind of treatment.
Yeah, they would have had that call been a factor in a decision, then absolutely everyone would have gotten involved. I think they got off the hook easy by having Plant stop him in the ninth. And it was the fourth round that I was talking about when McCumby caught Plant with a left-hand shot to the arm, knocked him off balance and put him down. And then Plant said after the fight, yeah, he caught me pulling out and hit me on my shoulder. I was just off balance. But either way, like I said, if it was a factor, you can rest assured that it would be addressed. But thank God Plant took it out of the hands of the judges and ended it with a TKO.
Yeah, and the referee, he struggled towards the end. Some of those punches were landed after the bell on the stoppage. As you would say, Bud, he was evaporating like a puddle on a hot summer day. I think he was going either way, but it just wasn't clean by the referee all the way around. But I just want to say credit to McCumby. I thought going in, looking at the record, looking at a 5-year layoff in between, seeing no names I've never seen, I thought he was going to get smoked. This is just an easy layup for Caleb Plant to come on back and return to boxing. And it wasn't. And you told me it might be interesting. He's big, he's physical, he's game, and he tested him. And the other question for me was Caleb Plant. How much damage has been done? How much was left in the ring versus Benavidez? How much was left in the ring versus Canelo? Would he be the same? Would there be some erosion of his chin? Which maybe there was with some of those. But I'm a huge Plant fan. To see the way he dug deep, to see the way he gritted it out and closed the show and went chest to chest with unbelievable adjustments. I want to see him next. He's back in the mix. And I'll ask you, I want to see Munguia. I want to see Berlanga. Who do you want to see playing against next?
Mbelli, Berlanga, any of the guys you just mentioned. Very interesting with the undefeated Mbelli. I'll tell you why. The same thing that that McCumby gave him trouble with those big shots, aggression, backing him up, catching him. Mbelli could do the same thing. But he could also do what he did to adjust and beat McCumby with Mbelli. He could go inside those big shots with Mbelli, with his short punches, with his experience, with his wiliness, and be able to stay calm in the eye of the storm, in the center of the hurricane, and punch in between. Oh, that would be awfully interesting. Does Mbelli get him out with the big shots, pressing him back early? Or does Plant survive that, get inside, and punch inside of those ferocious shots of Mbelli? Very interesting. A bunch of fights in that division that could all be interesting. But to finish up to what Ken touched on with the knockdown in the fourth, here's the funny thing. That wasn't a knockdown. That was on the shoulder. His legs got out from under him. He fell down. It was not a knockdown. The second round, again, that's the legitimate knockdown. They don't give him a knockdown. And then the referee, like I said, had a bad night. He needs to get glasses. He needs to get his eyes checked. He needs to get one of those checks that they do, in the eye office, where they dilate the pupils and they see whether or not you need contacts, all that stuff. Because the fourth round, as Ken said, he gets hit on the shoulder. He goes down. That's a 10-8 round. Should never have been a 10-8 round. He made an adjustment. Credit to Plant. McCumby's winning the fight the first 4 rounds. He's got the knockdown, the one that's illegitimate, to make up for the legitimate one. Either way, he's got the 10-8 round. And he's got steam, he's got momentum, he's got confidence going. And what happens? Experience. This is where you can't discount and you cannot make up for experience. You can't. It's invaluable. The experience, the heart, the grit, the experience of Plant won that fight. Because 2 reasons. One, he knew in a tough environment what adjustments. He could think clearly in an unclear place. Experience helps you do that. He didn't panic. He didn't doubt himself. And he saw that McCumby, I always say it's not about being just tough. You got to be smart. Plant was smart enough to realize that McCumby needed room to punch. He needed room to get the motor running, to get wind under the sails, to get wind under the kite. He needed to load up, and he did load up. And he was loading up on shots coming in. He took that room away from him. He said, freak this. I ain't giving him room no more. He's punched me around. He's bounced me around. He's made a believe out of me. And you know what? I'm going to go inside those wide shots where I have an edge. And he did it beautifully. He started punching like Joe Louis punches. Beautifully. Short, concise, smart, well-placed punches. He looked like Canelo later in the night. It's coming, guys. It's coming, Cinnamon. Cinnamon's coming. It's coming. I'm not letting it go. Cinnamon's coming. We're going to get him. He's going to get his due. He was great. Short punches, concise punches, well-placed. But Plant, first, he started it where he's throwing short punches inside McCumby's punches. He tightens them up to 6 inches. He's going to the body, bringing up the uppercuts like the young Mike Tyson. Left hook to the body, left uppercut. Roberto Duran. I mean, just beautiful, well-placed, educated, short punches inside the wider shots. He found a haven where you don't find unless you have the experience to know that place is a haven. You have to have the experience to know. Otherwise, people think it's just a dark cave, and they don't want to go in there. There might be a bear in there. There might be a lion in there. They go into the cave. He went into the cave, and he knew it would be safe. He knew it would be an advantage for him. And he punched it. He turned the whole fight around. He went from being a guy who's going to get upset to a guy who's the boss again. And he did two things in one. He did the physical thing that I just explained of taking away the space of McCumby and the advantage of McCumby that he needed with room. He took that away from him. He physically imposed himself now on McCumby, but he did something else. Psychologically, mentally, he imposed himself on him. He became the boss. And he became the professor. He became the teacher. He became the guy that had the answers to the test. A test that McCumby never had yet. McCumby came there with all the right intentions to win this fight and to break out. And I give him all the credit in the world. I like the guy. How can you not? Everything about him. But he didn't have the answers going in that Plant already had. And here's the most important answer you have to have for that test that's coming to every fighter. The answer of knowing when the moment comes, can I trust myself? Can I depend on myself? Can I handle that moment? Am I ready for this level? McCumby never had that answer before. He never had that test before. He didn't know. I think I am. Thinking is different than knowing. The question, when the moment comes at this level, at this stratosphere, in this thin air of opposition, can I handle it? Am I ready? Am I good enough? Again, can I trust myself? Can I depend on myself? You don't know. You don't know. You're looking to find out. The biggest edge for Plant was he knew already. He already had that answer. That was the key. That's why he didn't panic early when he got dropped. He had that answer. He knew that he could depend on himself. He knew he could handle the moment. And to his credit, Plant, it wasn't just the physical adjustments. The commentators were right on it. Where they missed the ball just a little bit. Like Robert De Niro said in Goodfellas. Yeah, you insulted him a little bit, just a little bit. They didn't talk about how psychologically he also took advantage of the moment. Because Plant knew not only that his shorter punches would give him an edge, but he also knew that by going inside and asking this question, bringing this question to the surface, are you ready? You thought you were ready. Are you ready? You're not ready, are you? By bringing it to that domain, by bringing it to that psychological place, Plant hit him with a double shotgun. Not just a one gauge shotgun, but a 2-gauge with 2 in the chamber. Hit him with both. Hit him with the physical part and the mental part. And the mental part was probably more damaging. To just remind them, hey, you're in a different place tonight. Hey, this ain't what the other 30 fights were, whatever was his record of undefeated fighters. This is different. How many was it?
He was 28-0 coming in.
28 times you've been here, but you never been here. You never been here. That's what he did to him. And that was brilliant. That was experience. That was championship behavior and experience. So I give him credit for that. From that point on, it was over. Plant became the boss. He started systematically breaking them down piece by piece. Breaking them down. The heart of McCumby kept him there. At the end of the ninth, he was already breaking them down. Every round, breaking them down. Body shots, uppercuts, inside. Breaking them down. And here's the worst thing for for McCumby. You know when you get to a place where you say, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. He got to that place. And that place was this. Going in, he knew he couldn't win on the outside. Plant's jab, the ability to box, his experience. He knew he couldn't win on the outside. He knew that he's a one-trick pony to a point, McCumby. And my best trick is get inside. I'm physical. I'm big. I'm tough. I'm game. I'm busy. I'm strong. Get inside and make that work. Okay, He did. And then when he found out that he couldn't win on the inside either, he already knew he couldn't win on the outside. He knew that already.
That's right.
But when he found out he couldn't win on the inside, he was like, oh, sugar.
Yep.
I got a problem. Houston, we got a problem, Houston. If I can't win on the outside, which I know, and I can't win on the inside, what the freak do I do? So he was in a dilemma, physically and psychologically. And in the ninth round, my son already said it, but I'm glad he brought it up. The referee finished a horrendous night in a horrendous way. Yeah, Plant won the fight. Yeah, Plant was breaking him down. Yeah, Plant was probably going to stop him. Yeah, maybe they were going to stop it in the corner because Plant opened up just at the end and had him hurt at the bell. But yeah, also, yeah, those last couple punches were after the bell. Those last couple punches, as my son said, was after the bell had rung. And the referee not only allowed them to score, but he stopped the fight. He should have, if you're going to do it by the rule of the letter of the law, he should have had the chance to go back to his corner and either stop it in the corner or see how he recovered after the minute rest and then make a decision. But that was taken away from him in his corner by the referee letting it go beyond the bell. I'm not saying it would have changed anything.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that he protested at all. And I think that, I don't know, I got the sense from looking at McCumby's face that he was almost relieved. That was my take. I could be way off base, but it looked like he was like, oh, thank God.
Ken, let me ask you something.
To your point, you were right. It was too early, I thought.
Let me ask you something, Ken, to your point. And you're right. You're right. But to your point, take away those last three punches that shouldn't have been thrown, that got thrown. He was already hurt. I make that concession. I'm not arguing it. But take away those last three punches that shouldn't have been thrown. Is he as down then? Is he as distressed? Is he as lost?
Definitely not as distressed, but I got the sense that he was, to your point earlier, he couldn't do anything with him. The tide was pushing him where it wanted to go. And it looked to me like it's inevitable. And I get the sense from the body language that it was like, oh, good, let's get out of here. I've had enough for one night. Let me regroup and come back stronger. That's what I got from it. But, I'm sure that the fighter would say, no, they damaged me.
You said one word. I'm so glad you said it. I really am. I'm not always glad about everything you say, but I am so glad. I am so glad. I'm kidding, of course. I am so glad you said this, body language. Ken, God bless you. I'm so glad you brought that up because I forgot. The body language, with everything else that we talked about, the body language of McCumby drastically changed from the fifth round on. And you know what? That was another thing because of the experience of Plant. He read that body language. He read that body language like an Indian reads the twigs in the twigs in the forest where there's a broken twig. He went this way. He went that way. He read that like a prophet reads tea leaves. You
could tell the way Plant started showboating. He does that when he's ahead and he feels confident. He started dancing around and putting on a show and trying to embarrass the other guy, which I'm not a big fan of, but that was the tell that Caleb knew, yeah, this is over.
And also breaking his spirit. But to me, it was what happened to him. That brutal inside work was what Benavidez did to Caleb Plant. And the funniest thing I just wanted to add and say before we move on is The DAZN commentator, I had to laugh. This was the 168 WBA vacant interim championship of the world with the 168-pound king and WBA active champion Canelo Alvarez on the same card.
No, I'm so glad you brought that, Bud. And I give credit. Thank you for bringing that up, buddy, because I would have missed it. I give credit. I don't know who the commentator was. If it was Mannix, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it was Mannix. It could have been Grissom. I'm not sure. But whoever it was, kudos to you for your courage, for your honesty to say that, because you did say it. You actually said something along the line that the WBA is shameless. They are once again shameless about their behavior, about the just how arrogant they are, how just uncaring they are about
a lack of credibility.
Yeah. About
no one considers that vacant. No one considers anyone else at 68 having even a sniff of the title. No one does.
No, 100%. And I give credit to the commentator again that a lot of these guys, they don't say it for a reason. They're afraid to say it. But he was not afraid to say it. I wasn't afraid to say it. I got fired. But that's okay. That's all right. But
he
I'm here.
Wasn't paying attention to that.
Look at the upgrade. Look at the upgrade. I'm here with these two great people. I mean, come on. I'm the one who got benefited. I'm the one who got the better of the deal. But again, the shamelessness, as the announcer said, of the WBA. You know what that stands for, right? It's not the World Boxing Association. What does that stand for, buddy?
We be asking.
Okay. So, for them once again, to show their lack of care for the, as you said, Ken, the credibility, the authenticity of the sport, just the respect of the sport, to just do this.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're saying.
I don't give a damn. I don't care. I'm gonna go and do what I want to do with the WBA, and I'm gonna call at 168-pound interim world title fight when there's the 168-pound undisputed champion fighting the same night on the same card.
He must not have paid the sanctioning fee, which I think most fans don't probably understand all the hidden fees behind the scenes, but it's just a complete and total sham, a scam, and a money grab from a few organizations and power players in the sport. But let's get into the co-main. Arislan de Lara against a very lackluster Danny Garcia. I had a hard time watching this one. The fight wasn't very good.
That's because you. Let me interject, Ken. That shows you your humanness, you as a human being.
Yeah, I like Danny Garcia. It was hard to watch a badly faded Danny in there against a 41-year-old Lara, the oldest active champion, and to see Garcia get knocked down in the ninth. Thank God, for as much as I can be critical of Garcia's dad, Angel Garcia. He did the right thing. As soon as Danny walked back to the corner, he told the ref, "We're done here. That's enough." And, Danny has been public about his mental health struggles and his... And I just have great admiration for him for showing his honesty, being the tough guy from Philly to be able to come out and talk about his vulnerabilities. I really love Danny Garcia. It was tough to watch, like I said, but Lara gets the win. I would imagine that's the last we see of Danny Garcia. Incredible career, one-time king of the division. How'd you like it? What'd you think of Lara? And what are your thoughts on Danny Garcia?
Always been a classy kid. Always did his talking in the ring, not outside the ring. Did his talking for the most part with his left hook. Great counterpuncher, great chin. Fought guys like Matisse, the guy was knocking walls down. He was like Ernie Shavers with the right hand in the heavyweight division years ago. Matisse was that in the 140-pound division, 147-pound division, whatever it was. Danny Garcia, 2-division champion, 140, 147. Definitely, they were debating whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. There's no debate. There's no debate. He's a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to get into really the place I could get into about the Hall of Fame, which is, not perfect, quite frankly, with some of the... look, I'm in it. And I'm going to be honest enough without getting deep. And I'm not saying I belong. I hope I do. The people I appreciate that enough people thought I do, and I appreciate the fans that thought I did. I don't know. It's not up to me. But I can only say this. If Danny Garcia doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, there's a lot of guys that should be taken out that have been put in.
That's very fair.
That
very
have
fair.
been put in. That, I'm not the, I don't know, whatever. Because some of the people in that Hall of Fame, I don't know. I don't know. But that's for another day. Maybe for no day. Maybe it's a day that never should happen.
I think enough. You said enough. I think people can decipher where we're going with that. And very good points, though. Very fair, very honest.
So, mental health. It's so, it's, man, oh man, we know so little. We know more about the anatomy, about a lot of the, more conventional, if you will, sicknesses with the body, but the mind. The mind is still one that there's so little known about, and it's the most important domain of the human existence, of the human body, the most important part, and we know the least about it. We know more about the heart, we know more about the arteries, we know more about the veins, the nervous system, but that part, still so much more we have to find out. And we know that the Charlo brothers have suffered it. For me, my prayers go out to all of them. Or anyone, you don't have to be a boxer, anyone who suffers with the families that suffer along with them with mental illness.
You're right. That's the hard part, is watching someone else go through something that you can't experience for yourself and trying to explain to someone who's going through their own mental struggles why they shouldn't feel like that is incredibly, incredibly difficult. Something I've struggled with myself, and I know at times it's very difficult for my wife because she doesn't understand, because she's mentally healthy, and I've had my own struggles, and maybe that's why I can sympathize with Danny Garcia.
Oh, listen, thank God you're okay. You have a beautiful family. I'm glad you're part of this show, and that for my part, I would hope it has helped you in your life in the last 4 years that you've been part of it.
It's helped me massively. It's one of the greatest things that I've been a part of. I can't thank you enough for including me.
So happy.
It's been a dream come true to be involved in the sport of boxing to a certain extent, as well as mixed martial arts, and to meet the people in the community we've been able to meet, that I've been able to meet as a result of being on here, has been a dream come true. And to be on here with you and now Teddy Jr. is a gift. So thank you very much. I love you. I appreciate you. And I can't thank you enough.
Listen, we're just happy you're here. You're part of this, and I'm happy. I'm happy you're doing well. Thank God. Listen, whether it's Ryan Garcia, I said it, the Charlo brothers, Danny Garcia, anyone who deals with these issues in or out of boxing, our thoughts and prayers would be with you if we know who you are, because it's a lonely disease. It's a debilitating disease. It's a disease that's so little known about it, but it's such a lonely disease because nobody knows. If your chest hurts, if your leg hurts, you could point to it. You could explain it. A doctor can, say, okay, let's do this. But that's something you can't point to it. You can't say, hey, this is what it is, because you don't know. You just know how you feel. And you know what? I was heartbroken, like you were, and like my son was, watching this fight, watching this kid suffer, just in the corner. The one time they showed him in the corner, I felt like crying. Where the kid, you could see it. There was nothing in his eyes. The eyes are the portal to the soul. They tell everything. A doctor used that little pen light in the corner. What do you think a doctor uses that for? To look into your eyes. To see if your pupils dilate properly after you've been hit with a big shot, possibly concussed. They want to look. The eyes tell everything. All you had to do was see the eyes. That poor kid was lost. He was a kid. He was a baby. You wanted to put your arms around him. You really did. You just want to put your arms around him and say, hey, son, love you. Let's go home. His father finally did it at the end of the ninth. But, sometimes people say, they watch the performance, they say he didn't want to be there. I would say this to the people that say he didn't want to be there. I would say this. He didn't want to be there. He shouldn't have been there. He just shouldn't have been there. He wasn't there. That wasn't Danny Garcia. No more than it was Muhammad Ali when he fought Larry Holmes that night. The great Larry Holmes. No more than it was Joe Louis when he fought the great Rocky Marciano. That wasn't Joe Louis. That wasn't Muhammad Ali. That wasn't Danny Garcia. That was a shadow of Danny Garcia. That was a memory of Danny Garcia. That was a slide that you put on a slide when you're showing photos of, old photos. That was just a photo of Danny Garcia. There was nothing with that photo. There was no blood. It wasn't Garcia. There was no fiber. All the things that constitute a fighter, it wasn't there, couldn't be there. It just wasn't able to be there. There's not much to be said. As far as the analysis, the breakdown, Lara is incredible. He's 41 years old. A lot of people thought he won the fight years ago against Canelo. Could have been a 1-point fight either way. I thought he could have won it. But he was a terrific amateur from the famous Cuban national team, world amateur champion, didn't fight the Olympics. I think it's because he defected. I believe he might have defected with Ribovics or tried to, who became a champion later. But
he defected in 2007. Olympics was 2008. He just missed it.
Thank you, bud. So, this is a terrific defensive fighter, southpaw, and man, he's got long arms. And if he didn't have enough advantages that we already touched on, that Danny shouldn't have been in the ring, even though Lara's, 5 years older, he's 41 versus 36 of Garcia. But he's been at that bigger weight. Garcia was a junior welterweight, then a welterweight. That's it. And then lately, boom, he jumps up, he's in fighting middleweight. Lara, he started off as a welterweight, a smaller weight. But Lara moved up to 154. And then later on, 160. He's been at that weight. He acclimated. He's been stable. He's been solid at that weight for years now. Where Danny, if he didn't have enough problems, he's fighting a bigger guy who's been at that weight for a long time now. And the arm, the length, the wingspan. Wow. He's a defensive fighter. He's a southpaw. He uses jab, Lara. That jab it hit you across the street. He could be standing on the corner, Ken.
I love those analogies.
He'll be standing on the corner, and you're minding your business across the street. You're drinking a Coca-Cola, and all of a sudden he reaches out and he takes your Coke. That's how long his freaking arms are. And He's hitting him
As
with
an
that
opponent,
jab.
it must be the most frustrating to think you're out of range and they just keep touching you on the chin with a pestering jab. It's got to be just incredibly debilitating.
And then you try to get close. You're right. And then you try to get close. You come in 6 inches, he goes back 9. And with his legs, beautifully, perfectly, times you perfectly. He goes back, perfect sense of control of range, distance, calm in that ring. Knows his environment, knows where he is.
When I think of Lara, I think of just like Donaire. The guy could be 60. He's been boxing for so long. Started, like you said, as an amateur in Cuba. That I feel like no matter how old he is, as long as he's still standing up, he can hit you with punches from everywhere. It's just ingrained in him. He's so technically proficient and efficient.
My buddy here is not only a great football guy, but he knows all sports. Because he used to wake me up in the morning when he was going to school as a 5-year-old, going to kindergarten. Main thing was, are you going to be there, Dad? He had to make sure you were going to be there. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure either me or my wife were going to be there at the end. And unfortunately, I was always there, but I could be a minute late. The poor thing, I remember he'd be looking looking above everybody to see if I was there. And I always ran out of breath. Hey, I'm here. I get there just in the nick of time. But I remember in the mornings, he would wake me up and he would tell me, 5 years old, he would tell me who won the Yankee game, Yankee game and the teams in the division with him. He knew I was a Yankee fan, so he was a Yankee fan too. And who got hits? So and so got 3 hits, Bud, and the Yankees won Bud in the 11th inning, and he. So I'm going to ask him. To me, Lara reminds me of the great old pinch hitters that could come off the freaking bench in the middle of the winter. Could come off the bench and still, at 40 years old, come off the bench and still get a hit. There was a few of them, but there was one who wound up playing for one of the New York teams. That's all I'm going to give you. And he was a great, great pinch hitter that could do what Lara did. Do it at 40, do it at 41, come off the bench in the middle of December and get a hit, or November. You know who that was, Bud?
Who's that?
He played for the Mets. He played for the Montreal Expos early, and then he got traded to the Mets.
John Olerud?
Mr. Rusty Staub. Rusty Staub, that was a little before your time. Rusty Staub was a guy that could come off the bench and get a hit in the middle of the winter, and that's Lara. That's Lara.
I'd say this to that. There wasn't much hitting in that fight. I'd compare him more to a pitcher and compare him to El Duque, the 44-year-old Cuban for the Yankees, and how he just pitched a shutout all night, obviously with some help from Garcia. But regardless of the troubles that you guys touched on, and I felt awful, as you guys already said, it was hard to watch. Reminded me of the eyes of Oliver McCall, minus the crying and turning his back. He wanted a way out. His dad kept asking him, are you okay? I mean, from the 3rd round on. And you just wanted it to stop. But no matter what, take that stuff aside. This fight was going to be a stinker. The stylistic matchup, we talked about it before the fight. This is what I expected. And again, I can't help myself. The WBA. This guy hasn't fought in almost 800 days. He has now 2 fights in 4 years. He's never fought at 160. Only fought once at 154. And he's fighting the WBA title at 160.
I know. It's just, unfortunately, it's boxing. Really,
Shameless,
I hate to say that.
Lack of credibility. Again, same theme every week. Shameless, lack of credibility, complete fraud.
And to Teddy's point, the styles, not only everything we just painted the picture of and laid out there that Danny Garcia had to overcome, the weight, the inactivity, the mental illness, but he's a counterpuncher. How are you going to counterpunch a guy who's got a jab that's 400 feet long? How do you how are you going to counter? I'd like to know. I'd like to learn something.
You're not. You're going to get knocked out in the 9th round.
There it is, Ken. There it is. And he's a counterpuncher. He had to suddenly become aggressive. That's not his style. That's not his temperament. And then on top of it, he's mentally not in the right place. It ain't happening. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
So it was a mess. It was designed. It was designed, like my son touched on. It was really basically from the outset. It was designed to be a mess. It couldn't be anything but a mess. At the end of the day, give credit to Lara, even though it was terrible, everything and all that. But Lara, at 41, he does what he does. He controls pace.
Yep.
He uses that long jab. He controls space. He makes you fight his fight. He looks to counterpunch you. He's defensively aware. So, but I don't know. I love Louis the Cubas, who's been with Lara from the beginning. Louis the king of the Cuban fighters. He's always been the guy that initially brought the first wave of great Cubans over here in the 70s. There were great Cubans before that, but I'm talking about the wave that we're talking about in the more modern generation that come over here and win titles. Louis the Cubas Sr. was the man. He was the man. Bring him over. I saw him. You saw him, Teddy. Yeah, he's got a place in your heart. He's been close to our family for many years. I smile when I see that face. I smile. He always finds the camera, by the way. Louis always knows how to find that camera. God bless you. There he is, that face. And he was with Lara. He brought Lara here, and he's still with him 20 years later. It's good to see. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you guys feel, but Lara, God bless him, he's had this career. He's been blessed with the WBA, getting all these opportunities, not really having to fight too many Godzillas out there. But he'll fight anybody, and he'll give everybody a trouble because of his style, because of how special he is. But he's been pretty well taken care of by the WBA. But and at 41, I salute him. But I don't want to see him in these kind of fights. I don't mean Danny Garcia. I only want to see him with that style at 41. I only want to see him if you're telling me he's fighting one of the other champions.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. And to be curious, like I said, hopefully that's a career for Danny Garcia. But we got one more fight to get to. For the hardcore boxing fans, are going to love this episode.
The great Canelo.
The great Canelo puts it on Berlanga, completely one-sided, drops him once in, I think, the 3rd or 4th round with a beautiful left hand. You could see Berlanga's frustration as he banged his gloves together after getting knocked down. But other than that, Canelo pretty much outclassed him all night long. Canelo now going on how many years? I think it was November of 2021 was the last time he got a stoppage against Caleb Plant. Since then, he hasn't stopped anyone. Now, he has also been in there with very strong opposition, but still no knockouts in 3+ years is not the look that Canelo's going for. Nevertheless, how'd you like the fight? Did Berlanga do anything to surprise you other than go the distance?
Yeah, he did. I think this fight will serve. We didn't know much about Berlanga other than he's young, he's undefeated, he's from Brooklyn, he's got talent. And he was a decent amateur, not an Olympian, but a good amateur. But we didn't know anything else about him. We didn't know, if he belonged, anything else. He didn't know, quite frankly, either. But I think this fight is the kind of fight, the way I watched it through the prisms of my eyes, my experience, that will make Berlanga, if it's in his genes, if it's in his destiny, if it's in his future to be a really, I'm not going to say great, but to be a special fighter, to be a champion, this fight will help do that. This fight will be a growth fight, a development fight, a fight where you find yourself, a fight where you put the cinder blocks down to stand up and be able to get to a place that people thought maybe you could get to, that thought maybe you had enough talent, but certain things had to come together and happen for that to really become a reality. This could be those things. Fighting a fight with a legendary, iconic guy that he's the big underdog, huge underdog with. Fighting that kind of guy, surviving, having moments, having something to build on, having growth moments where you could actually see him starting to grow. The only reason he didn't grow fully right in front of our eyes, like one of those little sponge figurines that I used to buy for my buddy when he was a little baby taking baths. I'm sorry I'm embarrassing the crap out of him, but I buy it for my grandkids now, his son, and my daughter's kids. Those little sponge figurines that are little things, and then you throw them in the tub and they become big things. They
come out of a capsule like a Excedrin tablet, the disintegrating capsule. And one quick thing, when you were talking about rushing in to make sure that he saw that you were there at a school event, I'm going through those exact stages of life right now. I came home late Friday night to make it to Cameron's football game, and he's out there playing. I get to the game late because it was early, so my wife was nice enough to get up early and take him. So I showed up, and to your point, he's asked me a million times, am I going to be there? So I was so concerned that he would see that I was there. They were playing at the high school stadium, which was a big deal. So there's nothing really going on in the game. And he's looking in the stands at the top of my lungs. I'm like, Cameron, I'm over here. You could see the people looking around like nothing's really going on yet. But I'm like, he has to know that I'm here. He went out there and played. He got a fumble recovery, an interception. I was so incredibly proud of him. He's the youngest, the smallest.
That's great.
Man, when your kids see that you're there and they come to life, it's like the greatest gift in the world. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's
son's
unbelievable.
Smiling. My son's smiling.
He's going through it himself.
He's smiling as you say it.
My guy T4 just started kindergarten, and I'm already feeling the same exact emotions when I pick him up in the schoolyard after school.
And I had the privilege and pleasure for the last 3 days or 2 days when I was there to pick him up with my son at school. And that's nice. Again, that's just, there's no price on that. It's just special. But I'm so glad you got there. I heard about that, Ken. I read a few things on the internet about that. You know, people know I don't read the internet, but for you, I make an exception. A few people pointed it out to me, and there were people that said, "Did you see Ken Rideout? You know, from the podcast? Did you see the way that he stood up to make sure everybody saw him in the stadium? Did you see? See, they didn't hear about the part. They missed the part about you yelling out, Cameron. They just said, did you see him the way he stood up and he tried to take center stage, you know, at the game and pull attention and say, hey, I'm here. You can start the game now. You know, listen, everybody, you're wrong. You're wrong. I told you there was an explanation. That wasn't him doing it for that reason. He wouldn't do that.
When it comes to my children, I'm happy to embarrass myself.
We all are. And I would concur with that. Look, getting back to those little sponge figurines, you drop them in the water, they explode big. They grow. Right in front of you. They go from 1 inch in diameter to 12 inches. They get big. They get huge. And that's what this fight was all about to me. Berlanga was trying to get huge. He was trying to become that figurine that, with all the talent and everything else, that could grow from within, to grow and blossom into the full package which is a lot more than a big, strong guy that has talent, but a guy who has all the other ingredients, the belief, the confidence, the intangible, the knowledge that he can depend on himself, that word that I use so often. He was looking to grow into that, and he was starting to grow into that. There was one deterrent. There was one thing that was stopping the full growth from happening right in front of our eyes. And it does happen in front of our eyes sometimes. It really does. Just like the movie where the producer on Broadway tells the young actor, the young actress, "Hey kid, you're going out there a little tonight as a regular performer, and you're coming back as a star, babe. You're going out there and you're coming back as a star." That's what Berlanga was trying to do. And as he was trying to do it, there was one thing that was stopping him. A great Canelo. I'm going to give him credit. I know I never give Canelo, people don't think I give him enough credit. I do what I believe is right to do. I don't think he's the greatest Mexican of all time because I don't think that the fans know how many great Mexicans there really are. I don't think they understand the history of their own country. I really don't. When they argue with me of how many great Ruben Olivares, Salvador Sanchez, Chavez Sr. I could go on for an hour. There's so many, and they all fought so many great fighters over and over again. So don't take it as a knock when I say he's not the greatest Mexican. And Canelo, don't you take it as a knock. Not that you need my approval. You don't. You got the approval of yourself, the approval of your fans, your family. That's all that matters. And it looks like you have a beautiful family. That's all that matters. But I will give him his due. Yeah, he's avoided Benavides. Yeah, he's picked his spots. He had the privilege of doing that because he's the pay-per-view king, because he earned it. When you bring in the money, you can pick your spots, your shots, a little bit more than somebody else. You can. He fights sometimes guys older, guys smaller, different weight class, whatever. But when I look at the totality, the body of work with 60-something fights, and all the guys that he has fought, and so many undefeated guys. Yeah, they some of them were a little short in this area, a little short in that. You can say that about any generation, about any era. But when I think about all the guys that he did fight, all the guys that he did beat, and the way he beat them, I got to take my hat off to you. Really. And I take my hat off. And the reason why there's Berlanga, who made you look like a featherweight in there with a heavyweight. He was that big, that dangerous, that strong, that young, that talented to the point that he had talent. When I take that into account, and I look at that, and again, a guy who hadn't learned how to lose yet, and I see that this guy was on the verge of becoming that sponge that gets bigger, that grows. You didn't let him grow because of your own greatness, because of how good you are. And you knew you had to be good with this guy. You recognized it. And you did it right from the beginning. You didn't allow the water to get on that sponge and to start growing early, which you would have. You came out fast. You came out the boss. You came out Canelo. You knew that you had to make sure that this young whippersnapper, this giant, this Goliath, this huge guy that put 25 pounds on from the weigh-in the night before. And that's another thing. We got to rethink this in boxing. We got to rethink this rehydration clause if it should be in there for all fights. We got to think about the old-time fights where even though they fought in smaller gloves, more fights, tougher fights in many cases, and they had, in many cases, less injuries. We got to rethink it a little bit. They had weigh-ins the day of, the same day weigh-ins. In other words, you couldn't rehydrate 25 pounds. In other words, you had to come in a proper weight class, Or you couldn't fight, you had to go to a heavier weight class. We got to rethink this a little bit. They're always coming up with different ways to make the sport safe and safer. That's one way. That's where you should do your thinking. That's where you start to have your meetings, where you go to all these elaborate, exotic places to have your meetings, where you're supposed to be, coming up with new ways to better the sport. That's where you got to start thinking about these kind of things, the things that are really prevalent, the things that are really pressing, the things that are really dire and important. But that aside, which is hard to put it aside, how big, if Canelo's not that good, he would have had a problem with this young, undefeated giant guy. And he understood. I always talk about the great ones had the cerebralness. He had the cerebralness, the awareness, the brains, the smarts to say, I can't let this guy get started. I can't let him get out of the gate and get the water on that sponge. I can't let him gain confidence, get some wind behind those sails. Because I might never catch up if I do. And he came out there immediately, the boss. Shorter guy, smaller guy, technically buttoned up, covered up nice. His trainer, Reynoso, does a great job, covered up nice. The other guy's got the reach, he's got the size, he's got the long jab. Who wins the jab department? Canelo. The shorter guy, the more experienced guy, but the shorter guy. He wins it. His jab is hard, it's accurate, it's at the right time. He presses behind it, it gives him cover. He gets inside. He goes inside with the big guy. He delivers a statement. He delivers a message. You ain't ready yet. You ain't ready yet. I am Canelo, and I am that good. I am that good. He goes to the body. The guy's bigger. But he recognizes the guy also has a bigger body to hit. So he hits him in the body. He throws his best punch. I think it's his best punch. The left hook. I know it. But it's also the uppercut. He throws that beautiful, beautiful short right uppercut. Rarely do you see an uppercut that is never a warning that comes with it. There is no fat to it. There is no giveaway that it's coming. It's just so smooth. It's usually the right hand. It's powerful, it's compact, it's explosive, it comes beautiful. The only thing I would add to it that I would have liked to see him put a left hook behind it. He landed that right uppercut cleanly throughout the night, and it was really clean. And Berlanga showed a great heart and a great chin. But I would have loved to see with that right uppercut a short left hook. Instead of hitting him one hard one, like Cus used to say, hey, Teddy, if you can hit him two, don't hit him with one. Hit him with a short hook right behind it. I would have liked to see that, but he went right out there and sent a message. And that was the key to the fight. One thing I will stand firm on, I'm giving all the flowers that Canelo deserves. He was terrific. His short punches, his inside fighting, his defense, his chin when he did get hit with an uppercut with the bigger guy. He's got one of the great chins in boxing. His sense of where he is. Again, his understanding that he had to start fast. His understanding he had to send a message. Just beautiful. Beautiful work on the inside. Short punches. Accurate. Educated. Well-placed. That left hook was a thing of beauty. It was a thing of beauty. He snuck into the range of the bigger man, got into the pocket, got into the eye of the storm, nice and calm, in a dangerous area, and he waited for unbelievable. Only great fighters can do this. Calm fighters, experienced fighters, special fighters. And I'm giving him his due. He waited for Berlanga to start the right hand, started, boom! He knew there would be a little hole. There would be a little space created. Not everyone could stand in there and take that risk. Like the great baseball batter that could stand at the plate with the ball coming 100 miles an hour. and wait till the last second, where the ball shows where it's going, because it's going to break. The ball's going to break. The good pitches, it breaks. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the big leagues even if you throw 100, if the ball doesn't move. And the great batters, they wait with the ball coming 100 miles an hour. They wait, and at this last split millisecond, as it breaks, bang, they get it around. That's what he did. He stayed at the plate. He stayed right in there in that uncomfortable, scary environment, dangerous environment. And just as the right hand was starting to be thrown, there was a little space. Pop. Right, a little space. Bang! Short, beautiful, explosive. Left hook. Drops him. Sends the message. You're in different waters, pal. You're in a different place tonight, pal. And I will stand by this. Here's what one of the main things that it came down to. When he picked Munguia, and I give Munguia all the credit, but when he picked Munguia, he knew Munguia wasn't quite ready. And I give credit that night. Canelo was terrific. He was even better against Berlanga. He was even better. And Berlanga, in some ways, might have been more dangerous. But he was even though Munguia was more experienced. But Munguia made the mistake, engaged him inside, got caught uppercut, set the tone. But he recognized in Munguia that he was getting a kid, even with 40 fights, hadn't been on this stage enough, hadn't been at this level enough, wasn't quite ready, didn't quite, like McCumby against Plant, didn't have the answers to the most important question. Am I ready? Am I ready? Am I ready? Can I depend on myself tonight? Munguia didn't have that answer yet, and Canelo took advantage of it and did what he had to do. The same thing was here. Canelo picked Berlanga, a talented fighter, but he knew, and I'm not knocking him, you haters out there, get over yourselves. Get a hold of yourselves. Come on, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. I know it's shocking that Teddy's given Canelo. Listen, I thought so much of Canelo's performance. I paid tribute to him so much for this that you know what I did this morning when I got up? I put cinnamon on my oatmeal. I never put cinnamon on my oatmeal. I never ask my buddy there. Ask my buddy, he never lies. I don't put cinnamon on my oatmeal. I put cinnamon on my oatmeal in honor, in tribute to the great cinnamon, otherwise AKA Canelo. So, but he picked him knowing, and it's not a knock, but he knew that Berlanga wasn't quite ready. I'll tell you something really interesting. You ready? I'm going to blow your mind. Going to blow your mind. If he fought him in a rematch, let Berlanga say have one fight and then fight again. It's going to be really, that fight, I'm not saying he'll beat Canelo. I'm not saying that. But man, oh man, it'll be even tougher. It'll be tougher. And Canelo probably won 10 rounds, but it'll be even tougher because he did finally get better. But here's the thing. He knew he wasn't quite ready. And more importantly, he knew that Berlanga knew he wasn't quite ready. And here's the genius of Canelo. And I know my very close brother, not friend, but brother, Pedro Martinez Fraga, I know he's listening because he watches this all while he's getting ready for a big case. Big case. I wish he was, well, if I ever need a lawyer, besides my daughter, I would want him. But I know that he's thinking of what I'm about to say right now, which is that Berlanga, here's the genius of Canelo, the pure genius of why I'm giving him these accolades. Besides his short punching, his great jab, his button-up defense, his chin, his heart, his Mexican heritage. But he recognized that if he took his foot off the gas pedal a little too soon or a little too much, he might not ever get it back on. That the guy might actually get ahead of him. The guy might actually get on the gas and grow. As I talked, he knew that he could never not be the boss. Maybe the 7th round he took off, and then he picked up. He paced himself a little because he's getting older. He has to pace himself a little more. Like a fine wine, you get better in certain areas. Yeah, you get smarter. He's not as busy as he used to be. He doesn't put the punches together as much, but he does everything else the way that he needs to do it at this age. He makes you fight his fight, and he keeps control of the fight. And what he did, that is the genius I'm talking about here, is that every time Berlanga was trying to garner a little confidence, a little momentum, he nipped it in the bud. He never let it get going. He never let it grow. He never let it really get started. He would get right on him, bang, bang, hook to the body, uppercut, right hand. He would just step it up. He stayed ahead. He knew he had to stay ahead. He couldn't fight from behind for a minute. If he fought from behind with this guy, with his ability to grow and to do damage, if he fought from behind for 30 seconds, he might have given Berlanga a chance to grow to a level that the fight would have been a lot harder. He never allowed that. And I recognize that. I don't know if other people did. And I'm giving him credit because I recognize that. Where Berlanga, he's trying to get started, and the jab would stop him. The body shot would send a message. The uppercut, the pressure. The attitude. Where Berlanga was almost starting to go down a bad road later in the fight when he started to try to headbutt him. And maybe that was starting to show deterioration mentally. A little bit, yeah, a little bit. But to Berlanga's credit, he put himself together after that. But when he did that, to Canelo's credit, what did he do? He cracked him. He didn't treat him nice. He didn't, accept it. He didn't let him grow. He didn't let him get an inch of confidence. He didn't let him get just a tiny bit of growth, of momentum. He made sure he never got it. And that's what he did so magnificently. And he had to do it because the guy would have grown. The guy would have become what I think he will possibly become now after this fight, a complete fighter. And man, I'll say it one more time, the size difference. Canelo had to know how to fight. He had to have a champion's demeanor to handle that. Like it didn't exist. Like he didn't even notice that the guy was like 10'6". He didn't, because the guy looked like he was 10'6". He really did. He looked like that freaking statue in the movie that what's his name? The guy from The Matrix. That actor, the great actor.
Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, the movie that he was in, the day the world stood still. You ever see that movie? The day the world stood still. Rob, get that picture up if you can. The big robot. The big giant robot from outer space that they brought in. He looked like that guy. That's my take on Canelo. Cinnamon, I salute you. I sprinkled you all over my oatmeal breakfast this morning. You were terrific. Sometimes maybe I didn't give you enough of a due. I still know that, you pick your spots. Everybody does, I guess you could say that. But your body of work speaks for itself. The amount of time that you've been in this sport, doing it at this level, speaks for itself. And this is the most important one, even though it's the last one, it shouldn't be minimized. You've handled yourself like a champion for all these years. You turned pro as a kid. Not everyone could have handled it. You became a multimillionaire very young, 15 years old, 16 when you first turned pro. We've never really heard anything bad about you in your career. You deserve credit. You deserve credit. The same way as a guy that, there's certain things I don't love about him, but I got to give credit to even a guy like LeBron James. Comes into the NBA 17, 18, makes millions of dollars, becomes a great player. Have you ever heard anything really bad, that embarrassing about his life? No. I mean, my favorite player for the same reason and talent, of course, Michael Jordan. But still, have you ever heard anything? No. So you got to give credit to his, the people around him, to his mother, his parents, whoever was involved. You have to give them credit. I do the same thing with Canelo. As much as I give you credit for what you've done in the squared circle, got to give you credit for handling everything you've handled, which is not easy at a young age, and doing it with class. So I'm curious what my son felt about it, because I know that my son is like my watchdog. He's like my pit bull terrier. That's what sons do. He sees things I don't even know about, or I even bother about. If somebody says, "Oh, you're a Canelo hater," or Canelo takes a snipe at me because I might have said, like I've said in the past, he's not the greatest Mexican fighter, but that never meant that he's not a great fighter. But I'd like to get my son's appraisal, if you would, of what you saw and really just of your view of his career.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much about the fight. I think you just did that and handled it and said it all the right way. I agree. For me, first of all, if they did fight the rematch, and I could see what you're saying, Berlanga would be better. I think there might be a rehydration clause in there. 193 pounds, supposedly, Berlanga. I mean, he was huge. And again, to your point, credit to Canelo for taking on the younger, bigger, stronger guy. I think Canelo's a great fighter. I was really impressed. I think he picks his spots. He conserves some energy, but I think like a fine wine, he is getting better. And I am a big fan of Canelo. What frustrates me and what I want to get to and what I want to ask you is, I hear all the people say Teddy Atlas is a Canelo hater. He doesn't say he's the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. I've been watching fights my whole entire life. I'm 39 years old now, and I never watched Salvador Sanchez. I don't know Oliveras. I don't know Zarate. I was 9 years old when Chavez Jr. was in the twilight of his career. I can't rank him with those great Mexican fighters. So what I can do is I could compare him or rank him with the ones I watched and that I'm aware of in my era. And that's Marquez, Juan Manuel. That's Marco Antonio Barrera and some others. So for me, I put him right there, right at the top for what I could rank. But you, obviously being in it your whole life, knowing the historical fighters, if he were to fight Terrence Crawford next, or David Benavidez, or Bivol Beterbiev winner, or let's say he stays at 168 and he cleans it out with Pacheco, with Membelis, and the rest of the world, is he then, or what does it take to put him in that rarefied air for you to consider him, if ever, to be the greatest Mexican fighter of all time?
Thank you for that. I think you probably have some fans might want to have asked. So thanks for putting me on a hot seat, and put me in that uncomfortable spot. But I'm kidding with you. I love you anyway. But I first of all, I don't think he has to be the greatest Mexican fighter of all time to get his flowers, as I said earlier. I think he's a great fighter. And he fits into the great heritage and tradition of great Mexican fighters. He fits in there. He belongs. That's enough. That's enough. He belongs. Look, if he wanted to be the greatest, for me, for Teddy Atlas, and he goes out and fights Benavidez and beats him, he fights a rematch with Bivol and beats him, you know what? I'd have to consider it. Yeah, fair is fair. I sure as hell would. But just what he's done in his body of work so far, what he's done in his career, my answer is this, bud. He belongs. I don't think he's the top guy because of the reason I said, but he belongs. He belongs. It's a good club to belong to, people. It's a special club. It's a VIP club. It's a club that not everybody gets invitations or access or entrance to. He belongs. But if you want to be up there, the greatest of the greats of Mexicans, this steep tradition of that special country of fighters, of warriors, yeah, you got to go beat Benavidez, beat Bivol, better be one of those guys. You know what? We'll have this conversation again. But
I was going to say, when he has those fights, we're going to revisit this one again.
And one thing, Ken, I want to just say to what my buddy brought up and touched on, and put a little more light on that I touched on about how big. I think that was part how big Berlanga was. I think that was part of the fight. And I'll say it in this way. This is what I mean. I think the youth, I've never said this before. I've said before that I think the youth was served to help the guy win or help the guy put on a good fight. I've said that before. This is the first time I think I combined youth and size. I think the youth and size and heart and finding and talent, I'm not taking nothing away from Berlanga. But I thought he came up a little short because of Canelo's talent and greatness, but also because he wasn't quite ready to be a believer. Quite ready to do enough to win. He did enough to lose honorably. He did enough to show that he's good. He could be a star. He did enough to not just survive, to be competitive, but to be competitive and to be able to walk away with pride, with a win, a personal win in his own mind that he can live with it, but didn't have to experience the confidence yet to take it to a place where he could do enough to actually have a chance to win. And he may gain that from this fight, as I said, and he should gain that. But I do believe that part of his great chin, his ability to take some really big shots from a really good puncher, part of that, aside from his heart and his will, part of that was his size. I think that I would be remiss. I would be coming up short in my analysis ability to not point that out, that his size helped him absorb the shots he absorbed. His size and his youth, but his size helped him put on that fight, helped him survive that fight, helped him have the night that a lot of people thought he couldn't have. His size played into it. I just wanted to.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect summation, Teddy. And for the hardcores out there, 3 hours of breakdowns ought to serve everyone and get you through the week. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with more action. Thanks to Teddy Jr. for being with us. Teddy, thanks for all the thorough analysis. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps us immensely.
Hey, Ken, one thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Do I dare take one more minute? A minute and a half. I hear them already. You hear them?
I hear Sam having a panic attack. I think he's got to be out by 5.
I hear the fans. I hear them yelling already. Teddy, you're going to leave without giving us a quick preview or prediction of the heavyweight fight in London next week, which I might be at. I've been asked to go, so I don't know if I'm going to be there, but I might be at Dubois and Joshua. I hear them yelling, Teddy, you done it. You're going to leave without telling us who's going to win or a quick analysis so we can call up my bookie or we can at least be ready to yell at you when you're wrong. I'm going to say this. I think Dubois has grown. Like that little sponge figurine I talked about that Berlanga could grow into. I think that he's grown in the last 2 fights as a fighter, as a man, as a person, with confidence, with belief in himself, to win the last 2 fights and overcome what he had to overcome to win them in the last 2 fights. I think Dubois has done that. I think that Joshua is in the best place he's been since he probably beat Klitschko for the title and was a young heavyweight champ after being an Olympic champion. I think that he's in a real good place with his trainer, Davidson. Here's what I think of that fight. Dubois was tremendous in his last fight against Herjavec. He overcame. He broke Herjavec down. He evaporated, like my son said. He evaporated him on a hot summer day, evaporating a puddle right in front of your eyes with his toughness, with his physicality. He's strong. He's a good puncher. He can impose now his will that he didn't have earlier, but he's got that will now. He can impose his will and his physicality on you. If he hits... And that's a big if. But if he hits Joshua, he could hurt him. But if he gets hit with the kind of right hands that he overcame against Herjavec, who doesn't punch as hard or as concise as Joshua, if he gets hit with those right hands in the early part of the fight, in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds, like he did against Herjavec, he won't be around to overcome it. He won't be around to impose his will. He won't be around to hurt Joshua with his physical presence and his power. He won't be there. He'll get knocked out. So unless he has done something that I don't know that he could have done in the last 2 months, but unless he got the right trainer to teach him, and hopefully his trainer, who's a good trainer, hopefully they did for his sake. But unless he improved his defense, his ability to get away from right hands, which he did not do against Herjavec, unless he's done that in the last couple months since that fight, Joshua's going to knock him out in 1 or 2 rounds. If he can get
98,000 people setting a Wembley record in attendance to watch that. It's going to be incredible.
98,000. Normally, Wembley, if it's sold out, fits 90. So they put in, I guess, at least another 8,000. Wow.
About that, yeah. The record was Tyson Fury and Dillian White, about 94,000. This will break it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, make it 94,001, possibly, or 98,001. Actually, 2. Because, God willing, if I do go and my daughter's able to go instead of you, the great Nicole Atlas, the great attorney, she's going to replace you on this trip, and she's going to come with me. So we'll see whether or not that happens. But I'm sorry I made it 3 hours and 10 minutes, Sam. please forgive me. He put his thumb up. He's forgiving me. But I just thought that the fans would want to hear a little analysis, a little preview. So my preview, my analysis is, if he didn't improve his defense, and I have no proof that he has, I think that as game as he is, as much as I like Daniel Dubois, I think Joshua hits him with a right hand early and gets rid of him.
And there you have it. And that, like I said, is a thorough analysis of everything that happened, what we have coming up, and we'll be back here next Tuesday to break down all the action from.
Do you want to know what's going to happen in 2025? Do you have time for that? Because if you do, we'll go. I'm only kidding. We're long enough. Thank you for saying yep, but I was just kidding. We've been on here for a day and a half. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for being with us. Like and subscribe. See you next week. Boom.